The rise and fall of ancient Rome. Ancient Rome was not built in a day, nor did it fall in one. It rose from humble beginnings, a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber River, and grew into one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. Its story is one of ambition, conquest, art, philosophy, and power. But like all great civilizations, Rome was not eternal. It reached dazzling heights before slowly unraveling, leaving behind ruins that still whisper the echoes of its past. The dawn of a legend. In the soft glow of myth and history, Rome's origins are tied to the legendary story of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a she-wolf. It is said that Romulus, after a fierce dispute, founded the city in a place where 7 hills rose above the land. What began as a small kingdom grew into a republic, a system where citizens had a voice, laws were debated, and power was shared, at least among the elite. The early republic was marked by struggle and strength. Rome expanded its influence by forging alliances, waging wars, and absorbing the cultures of those it conquered. The legions, disciplined and relentless, became the backbone of Roman power. Step by step, Rome extended its reach beyond Italy, marching toward an empire. The Age of Empire. The transition from republic to empire was not peaceful. Civil wars shook the foundations of Rome, and in the aftermath, Julius Caesar emerged as a leader unlike any before him. His vision, ambition, and military genius reshaped Rome, but his rise ended in betrayal. On the Ides of March, he was assassinated, yet his legacy did not die. From the chaos that followed, Augustus, Caesar's adopted heir, took control. He became Rome's first emperor, ushering in an era of peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. The empire stretched from the windswept shores of Britain to the golden sands of Egypt, from the Iberian Peninsula to the distant borders of Persia. Roads connected cities, aqueducts carried fresh water, and grand structures like the Colosseum and Pantheon stood as symbols of Rome's greatness. The people of Rome lived in a world of astonishing contrast: gladiatorial games and philosophical debates, grand villas and crowded tenements, military campaigns and thriving trade. Rome was a beacon of civilization, its culture influencing art, law, and governance for centuries to come. The cracks begin to show. No empire lasts forever. Over time, cracks appeared in Rome's mighty foundations. The economy wavered, corruption spread, and political struggles weakened the state. The vast empire became harder to govern, and external pressures mounted. Germanic tribes and eastern threats tested Rome's borders. The division of the empire into eastern and western halves was an attempt to manage its vastness, but it also signaled the beginning of decline. While the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as Byzantium, would endure for another 1,000 years, the Western Empire faced growing instability. Rome, once unconquerable, became vulnerable. The legions, once invincible, were stretched thin. In the year 410, the unthinkable happened. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, sacked Rome. The eternal city, the heart of an empire, was no longer untouchable. The end and the legacy. By the late 5th century, the Western Roman Empire had crumbled. In 476, the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed, marking the official fall of Rome. It was not a dramatic collapse, but rather a slow unraveling, as power slipped from Roman hands and new kingdoms rose from its remains. Yet Rome never truly died. Its culture, language, architecture, and ideas lived on, shaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. The ruins of its greatness still stand, whispering stories of an empire that once ruled the known world. The rise and fall of ancient Rome is more than a historical tale. It is a reminder of the cycles of power, the fragility of even the mightiest empires, and the enduring legacy of human ambition and achievement. The myth and reality of King Arthur. In the misty lands of ancient Britain, where rolling hills meet dense forests, a legend was born. The tale of King Arthur, the noble ruler of Camelot, the wielder of Excalibur, and the leader of the Knights of the Round Table, has enchanted minds for centuries. It is a story woven with magic, heroism, and the eternal quest for justice. But behind the myth lies a deeper mystery. Was Arthur ever real? Did a warrior king once stand against the tides of history? Or is he merely a dream passed down through the ages? The legend of Arthur. The Arthurian legend is rich with stories of courage and destiny. It is said that Arthur was the son of Uther Pendragon, a great king who was guided by the mysterious sorcerer Merlin. According to legend, Arthur's true identity remained hidden until he performed an impossible feat, pulling a sword from a stone, proving himself the rightful ruler of Britain. Under Arthur's rule, Camelot flourished, a kingdom of justice and chivalry. He gathered the greatest knights in the land, forming the legendary Round Table, where all were equal. His queen, Guinevere, stood by his side, while the brave and loyal Sir Lancelot fought for his king, despite the love that would one day test their loyalty. The stories tell of Arthur's many battles, of his fabled sword Excalibur, given to him by the mystical Lady of the Lake. They speak of his search for the Holy Grail, the sacred cup that could bring divine wisdom. But Arthur's tale, like all great legends, was not without tragedy. Betrayal, love, and war led to the fall of Camelot, and Arthur, wounded in battle, was taken to the mystical Isle of Avalon, where it is said he rests, waiting to return when Britain needs him most. The search for the real Arthur. For centuries, historians and scholars have searched for the truth behind the legend. Was Arthur a real king, a warrior, or simply a figure of myth? The earliest references to a leader named Arthur appear in ancient Welsh texts, describing a fierce warrior who fought against invading Saxons after the fall of the Roman Empire. Some believe Arthur may have been inspired by a real historical figure, a warlord who led the Britons in defense of their homeland during the turbulent 5th and 6th centuries. No solid evidence places Arthur in recorded history. There are no definitive chronicles, no inscriptions bearing his name, no ruins of Camelot waiting to be uncovered. Yet the spirit of Arthur lingers in the landscapes of Britain, in the ruins of Tintagel Castle, in the echoes of ancient battles, in the mysterious standing stones that dot the countryside. Why the legend endures? Arthur's story has endured not because of historical proof, but because of what it represents. It is a tale of hope, of leadership, of a world where honor and chivalry shape destiny. It speaks of the struggle between light and darkness, the eternal quest for justice, and the idea that a noble heart can change the world. The legend of Arthur has changed over time, growing with each retelling. Medieval poets added romance and grandeur. Victorian writers made him a symbol of lost glory, and modern storytellers continue to reinvent his tale, shaping him anew for each generation. Perhaps Arthur's greatest legacy is not in whether he lived, but in the ideals he represents. He is the dream of a golden age, a vision of a world guided by courage, wisdom, and honor. And so his legend continues, carried by whispers in the wind, waiting for the day when, as the old stories say, he will rise again. The silent beauty of abandoned European villages. There is a quiet poetry in places left behind, hidden among rolling hills, deep forests, and misty valleys. Abandoned villages rest in peaceful solitude, their once bustling streets now empty, their homes standing as echoes of a life that once was. Across Europe, these forgotten settlements tell silent stories, wrapped in ivy and softened by time. The echoes of the past. Walking through an abandoned village feels like stepping into a dream. The air is still, save for the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. Stone cottages, their doors slightly ajar, stand as though waiting for their inhabitants to return. Moss-covered walls and crumbling staircases lead nowhere, yet they hold the weight of countless footsteps. Some villages were left behind slowly, as younger generations sought work in cities, leaving only a few behind until, one by one, the last windows were shuttered. Others were abandoned suddenly, war, famine, or natural disasters forcing entire communities to leave in haste. The reasons vary, but the result is the same. Time moved on, but these places remained untouched, suspended in their own quiet existence. Nature's gentle embrace. With no hands to tend the gardens or sweep the paths, nature reclaims what was once hers. Ivy wraps around wooden beams, wildflowers bloom where markets once stood, and trees rise through the floors of forgotten homes. Birds and small animals move freely through the empty streets, making nests in the corners of old rooftops, their presence the only movement in a world that no longer belongs to people. In some villages, church bells remain frozen in their towers, silent sentinels overlooking empty squares. Wells are covered in moss, their waters still reflecting the sky. Broken shutters creak in the wind, whispering stories no one is left to hear. Even in their decay, these places are not lifeless. They have merely entered a different kind of existence, one where time drifts like mist over the rooftops. Whispers of forgotten lives. Despite their emptiness, these villages feel alive with memory. A weathered sign above a shop door, a rusted bicycle leaning against a wall, an old chair left beside a fireplace, all small remnants of the lives once lived here. Some homes still hold furniture, dusty plates on tables, books left open as if their owners meant to return. Every village has its own untold story. Perhaps it was once home to farmers who greeted the morning sun with the ringing of cowbells. Perhaps it was a haven for artists and poets, inspired by the beauty of the surrounding hills. Perhaps lovers walked these paths, children played in the fields, and elders shared stories by the fireside. Now, all that remains is the feeling that time has paused, allowing these places to rest, untouched by the modern world. The allure of forgotten places. There is a special kind of peace in wandering these abandoned villages. The world outside fades, and all that remains is the sound of the wind, the soft crunch of footsteps on worn cobblestones, the distant trickle of a forgotten fountain. It is a place where the past and present blend, where history lingers in the air like the scent of rain. Some seek these places out, drawn by their beauty and mystery. Photographers capture their quiet elegance. Historians trace their lost stories. Travelers find solace in their solitude. Others simply pass by, unaware that just beyond the bend in the road, a village sleeps beneath the sky, its secrets hidden beneath a blanket of moss and time. Though abandoned, these villages are not truly gone. They remain, standing still as the world rushes forward, offering a glimpse into a life once lived, a world once full of laughter and light. And in their silence they speak, softly, beautifully, to those who pause to listen. The age of chivalry, knights, castles, and medieval life. There was once a time when knights rode beneath fluttering banners. Castles stood as mighty fortresses against the horizon, and the ideals of chivalry shaped the hearts of warriors and poets alike. The medieval world, with its grandeur and hardship, remains a place of fascination, where history and legend intertwine. It was an age of feudal lords and gallant champions, of whispered courtly romances and fierce battles fought in the name of honor. Though centuries have passed, the echoes of this age still linger in crumbling stone walls, in ancient manuscripts, and in the stories that endure. The life of a knight. To be a knight was to embrace a life of duty, discipline, and devotion. From childhood, noble sons were trained in the ways of combat, beginning as pages who served in great halls, learning the art of swordplay and horsemanship. With time, they became squires, assisting seasoned warriors on the battlefield, tending to armor and sharpening their skills. Only after proving their worth through courage and loyalty would they kneel before a lord and be dubbed a knight. Knights were not only fighters but also figures of a noble ideal, the chivalric code, which called for bravery, courtesy, and the defense of the weak. They fought in wars, served their lords, and took part in grand tournaments where the clash of lances and the cheer of the crowd filled the air. Some sought adventure, wandering as errant knights, while others stood guard over castles and lands, protecting those who lived beneath their banner. Beneath the weight of their steel armor, beneath the visors of their helmets, knights carried the dreams and burdens of their time. Some became heroes whose names still survive in song, while others vanished into the quiet pages of forgotten history. Castles, stone guardians of the land. Rising from the landscape like silent sentinels, castles were more than mere homes for lords and their families. They were symbols of power, centers of governance, and fortresses built to withstand siege and storm. Thick stone walls, towering battlements, and deep moats kept enemies at bay, while within their halls life unfolded in both splendor and hardship. The great halls of a castle echoed with laughter during feasts, where roasted meats and spiced wines were shared under candlelit chandeliers. Yet in times of war, those same halls became shelters, filled with the anxious whispers of those seeking protection. Below, in dimly lit kitchens, cooks prepared meals, while blacksmiths worked tirelessly in the forges, shaping weapons for battle. Beyond their defenses, castles were also places of learning and culture. Some became centers of art and music, where troubadours sang of lost love and epic deeds, where scribes copied manuscripts, ensuring that knowledge would not be lost to time. And though many of these mighty fortresses now stand in ruins, their stones still tell the tales of the lives once lived within them. The rhythms of medieval life. For those who did not wield swords or wear crowns, medieval life followed the steady rhythm of the land. Farmers toiled in the fields, guided by the changing seasons, sowing grain in spring, harvesting in autumn and enduring the hardships of winter. Villages, clustered around churches and marketplaces, bustled with tradesmen, blacksmiths, and weavers, each playing a role in the delicate balance of daily life. The church stood at the heart of medieval society, its bells marking the hours, its teachings shaping the minds of kings and commoners alike. Monasteries became places of refuge and learning, where monks preserved ancient texts, illuminating pages with intricate gold leaf designs. Pilgrims traveled dusty roads in search of sacred places, their journeys driven by faith and hope. Despite the grandeur of knights and castles, life was often difficult. Disease, war, and famine cast long shadows. And yet, there was also beauty. Festivals that filled the streets with music and color, the warmth of a hearth on a cold evening, the simple joys of storytelling by firelight. The end of an era. As time passed, the age of chivalry began to fade. New weapons and changing battle tactics made heavy armor and towering castles less effective. Cities grew, trade flourished, and the feudal world gave way to something new. Yet the spirit of the medieval age did not vanish. Its stories live on in legends of noble quests, in the ruins of castles that still stand against the sky, and in the timeless allure of an era where honor and courage were the measure of a man. The age of chivalry may be long gone, but its echoes remain, whispering through history, waiting to be remembered. The secrets of the Renaissance: art, science, and discovery. There was a time when the world awakened from the shadows of the past and bathed in the golden light of creativity and knowledge. The Renaissance, rebirth of ideas and imagination, swept across Europe, leaving behind a legacy of breathtaking art, groundbreaking discoveries, and a renewed thirst for the wonders of the world. It was a time of visionaries, of thinkers who dared to look beyond the known, of hands that painted masterpieces and minds that reshaped the very fabric of reality. The art of genius. The Renaissance was a world of beauty, where art became more than just decoration. It became a mirror of the human soul. No longer bound by the rigid forms of the medieval past, artists embraced perspective, movement, and light, breathing life into their creations. Their works captured not only the divine, but also the earthly, portraying kings and commoners with the same careful devotion. Leonardo da Vinci, the master of observation, painted the enigmatic Mona Lisa, her smile a mystery that has endured for centuries. His Last Supper transformed a simple meal into a moment of deep emotion, where each figure seems to breathe within the scene. Michelangelo, with his chisel and brush, brought marble to life, sculpting David as though he were carved from living flesh, and painting the Sistine Chapel with visions that seemed to touch the heavens. Every brushstroke, every statue, every fresco of the Renaissance was infused with something new, an understanding of humanity, of nature, of the way light and shadow danced together. It was a time when art no longer simply told stories, but invited the viewer into them, making them part of the eternal dialogue between past and present. The dawn of science and discovery. While artists captured the beauty of the world, scientists and thinkers sought to understand it. The Renaissance was not only a rebirth of art, but also of knowledge, a time when curiosity was no longer feared, but celebrated. The great minds of the age peered into the mysteries of the universe, questioning the old and seeking the truth in new ways. Astronomers turned their eyes to the heavens, challenging the belief that Earth was the center of everything. Nicholas Copernicus proposed a daring idea that the planets revolved around the sun, not the other way around. His vision shook the very foundations of understanding, paving the way for future discoveries that would change how humanity saw its place in the cosmos. In anatomy, Renaissance scholars looked beneath the surface of the human body, seeking to understand its intricate design. Andreas Vesalius carefully dissected and studied, creating detailed drawings that revealed the truth of human physiology, challenging centuries of misconception. His work, like that of so many Renaissance thinkers, was built upon observation, on seeing the world as it truly was, rather than how it had long been imagined. The Renaissance was also a time of invention. Leonardo da Vinci sketched machines that would not be realized for centuries. Flying devices, war machines, and mechanical wonders far ahead of their time. The printing press, created by Johannes Gutenberg, allowed knowledge to spread like never before, turning books into vessels of thought that could reach across borders and generations. A world of exploration. Beyond the canvas and the scholar's desk, the Renaissance was an age of discovery. Brave explorers set sail into the unknown, driven by a desire to find new lands, new trade routes, and new possibilities. The world was no longer a map with empty spaces. It was a vast and rich place waiting to be revealed. Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic, seeking a passage to Asia, and instead reaching lands that would reshape the course of history. Vasco da Gama opened the sea route to India, linking distant worlds in a web of trade and cultural exchange. Ferdinand Magellan's voyage proved the Earth could be circumnavigated, an idea once thought impossible. With every voyage, the known world expanded. Spices, gold, and precious goods flowed across oceans, but so too did ideas, stories, and ways of life. The Renaissance was not just about rediscovering the past. It was about pushing forward, reaching beyond the horizon, and embracing the unknown. The enduring legacy. The Renaissance was a time when humanity looked both inward and outward, rediscovering its own potential. It was an age of beauty, knowledge, and courage, where minds were free to dream and hands free to create. Though the golden age of the Renaissance eventually faded, its spirit never truly vanished. Its paintings still gaze upon us from museum walls. Its inventions shape the world we live in. Its ideas continue to inspire those who seek truth and wonder. The Renaissance was not just a moment in history, it was a spark, one that still burns in every brushstroke, every discovery, and every leap of imagination. The hidden stories behind Europe's oldest cathedrals. Rising above city squares, standing firm against the passage of centuries, Europe's oldest cathedrals are more than places of worship. They are storytellers in stone, silent witnesses to history, holding within their towering spires and dimly lit corridors the echoes of prayers, secrets, and forgotten tales. Their walls have seen the rise and fall of empires, the coronation of kings, the whispers of monks, and the flickering glow of candlelight on cold winter nights. Each cathedral carries a story, waiting to be discovered in the quiet hush of its sacred halls. Whispers of the past. Every cathedral begins as an idea, a vision sketched in the minds of architects and craftsmen who sought to reach toward the heavens. But their construction was no small feat. Many took centuries to complete, with generations of artisans dedicating their lives to shaping each delicate arch, carving each statue, and painting each fresco. Some cathedrals stand atop even older sites, where ancient temples or wooden chapels once stood, their foundations layered with history. Beneath these grand structures, crypts and hidden tunnels weave through the earth, holding the remains of saints, scholars, and long-forgotten nobles. Some cathedrals house relics said to hold divine power. A fragment of the true cross, the bones of a revered saint, or even the chalice from which Christ himself was said to have drunk. These relics drew pilgrims from across medieval Europe, their footsteps wearing smooth the stone floors as they journeyed to seek blessings or miracles. The language of light and stone, step inside, and a cathedral's walls seem to breathe with color. Stained glass windows tall as trees filter the sunlight into dancing patterns on the floor. Each panel tells a story, scenes from scripture, the lives of saints, celestial visions that once taught the faithful in an age when few could read. When the light shifts, so too does the story, as if the cathedral itself were alive, whispering through beams of gold and sapphire blue. Above, ribbed vaults stretch toward the sky, their delicate patterns defying the weight of the stone they support. Gargoyles perch along rooftops, their grotesque faces staring outward, not just as decoration, but as protectors, warding off unseen evil. Some say they come alive at night, whispering secrets between the towers. Many cathedrals hold carvings of mysterious figures hidden among their decorations. Green men peering from foliage, strange beasts woven into the woodwork, even the faces of the very masons who built them. It is as if those who shaped these cathedrals left behind a secret signature, knowing their hands would never be remembered, but their work would endure. Echoes of history. Through times of peace and turmoil, these cathedrals have stood unmoved. They have watched as cities rose around them, as wars raged outside their doors, as plagues swept through the streets. Some bear the scars of fire, others the marks of cannonballs, their stones still holding the shadows of battles long past. In the great cathedrals of France, England, and Spain, kings and queens were crowned beneath vaulted ceilings, their fates sealed within sacred walls. In Rome, pilgrims have knelt before the same altars for centuries, their voices blending into one unbroken prayer. And in the stillness of Gothic cloisters, monks once walked in silent contemplation, their footsteps echoing softly on worn stone. Even as time moved forward, changing the world beyond their doors, the cathedrals remained, their bells tolling in endless rhythm, marking the passage of days, of centuries, of lives lived and lost. The timeless presence. To step into an ancient cathedral is to step outside of time. The coolness of the air, the scent of old wood and melted wax, the distant hush of footsteps on marble, all create a space where the past feels near, where the whispers of history linger in every shadowed corner. Even today, these cathedrals continue to stand as guardians of memory, their beauty untouched by time. Travelers and worshippers alike find solace within their walls, drawn by the quiet majesty of these sacred spaces. Some come to marvel at their artistry, others to feel the presence of something greater than themselves, something ancient and enduring. Though centuries pass and the world changes, Europe's oldest cathedrals remain, silent, steadfast, their stories carved into the very stones that hold them upright. And for those who listen, they will always have more to tell. The grand European expeditions exploring the unknown. There was a time when vast stretches of the world remained unseen, where maps held blank spaces and the edges of the known were shrouded in mystery. The great European expeditions were more than voyages across the sea or treks through uncharted lands. They were journeys into the unknown, fueled by curiosity, ambition, and the endless pull of discovery. These expeditions reshaped the world, bridging distant lands, connecting cultures, and forever altering the course of history. The call of the horizon. For centuries, the world beyond Europe's shores was a place of legend, its distant lands described in whispered tales of wonder. Merchants spoke of golden cities, of spices so rare they were worth their weight in gold, of creatures never before seen. Maps sketched dragons at the edges of the world, marking the unknown with warnings of peril and promise alike. But there were those who would not be content with stories. They sought to see with their own eyes, to step onto lands no European had touched, to chart the unmapped and claim the unexplored. With each passing generation, new adventurers set sail, their ships cutting through the waves toward the great beyond. Some sought new trade routes, others chased the dream of riches, and some simply longed to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden beyond the horizon. The age of sail and discovery. The great explorers of the Renaissance set forth with nothing but the stars to guide them, their wooden ships braving tempests and unknown seas. Portuguese sailors, driven by a desire to reach the riches of the East, carved a path around Africa, opening the way to the spice-laden markets of India. Spanish expeditions ventured westward, crossing the vast Atlantic and stumbling upon lands they had never imagined. Christopher Columbus set sail with dreams of reaching Asia, yet he stepped upon shores that would soon be called the New World. Ferdinand Magellan's expedition would go even further, proving what many had long feared and wondered. The earth was vast, round, and could be circumnavigated, though not without great cost. These voyages redrew the lines of the known world, replacing the monsters on old maps with coastlines, islands, and newfound civilizations. As the explorers charted new lands, their journeys wove together continents once separated by oceans. Trade blossomed, ideas flowed, and the world, once so vast and distant, began to feel just a little smaller. Lost cities and forgotten paths. But not all explorations took place at sea. Across Europe, adventurers and scholars turned their gaze inward, seeking the hidden past buried beneath their own lands. The ruins of ancient Rome, the long-forgotten roads of the Celts, the sacred sites of Viking settlements, all lay waiting to be rediscovered. In the shadowed valleys of the Alps, explorers uncovered lost monasteries, their halls silent with the weight of centuries. In the deep forests of Germany, forgotten castles stood hidden beneath ivy and thyme. Even beneath the bustling streets of European cities, ancient tunnels and catacombs whispered secrets of the past, waiting for the light of discovery to touch them once more. The spirit of exploration. Though the great age of European expeditions eventually faded, its spirit never disappeared. The longing to explore, to seek out the unknown, is woven into the fabric of human nature. Even today, travelers retrace the steps of the explorers, wandering through old ports where ships once set sail, standing upon the very cliffs where sailors watched the horizon, dreaming of what lay beyond. The world may be mapped, its lands no longer hidden behind the veil of mystery, but the journey never truly ends. There will always be something to discover, an ancient road overgrown with time, a forgotten artifact buried beneath the earth, a story lost to history, waiting for a new traveler to listen. For those who still feel the pull of adventure, the echoes of the grand European expeditions remain, carried by the wind, whispering of the endless beauty that lies just beyond the known. The forgotten kingdoms of medieval Europe. Beneath the weight of time, the great kingdoms of medieval Europe rise in memory: England, France, the Holy Roman Empire. Yet among the grand stories of kings and conquests, there were smaller realms, lost to the pages of history, their names whispered only in ancient ruins, old manuscripts, and forgotten legends. These were the kingdoms that once flourished, standing proudly before fading into obscurity, their borders erased, their rulers turned to shadows, and yet their echoes remain, hidden in the quiet corners of Europe. Realms lost to time. Throughout the medieval world, shifting alliances and endless wars shaped the land. Some kingdoms rose to power, forging mighty empires that would endure for centuries, while others flickered briefly, their golden ages vanishing as swiftly as they appeared. In the heart of the Pyrenees, there was the Kingdom of Navarre, a land of mountain fortresses and warrior kings, once a powerful bridge between Spain and France. Its rulers defied invaders, its castles stood firm against time, but eventually its lands were divided, absorbed into greater empires, leaving only the memory of a proud and independent realm. Further east, the Kingdom of Bohemia thrived, a jewel of Central Europe where Gothic cathedrals rose and scholars debated in candlelit halls. Once an empire in its own right, Bohemia stood at the crossroads of cultures, its rulers crowned as kings, yet destined to be overshadowed by larger powers. Today, traces of its past still linger in the cobbled streets of Prague, where the whispers of history remain. The vanishing thrones. Some kingdoms existed only for a breath in time, their stories now half remembered. In the misty isles of the north, the kingdom of Strathclyde once ruled over what is now Scotland, a land of fierce warriors and ancient traditions. It stood against Vikings, resisted the might of expanding Anglo-Saxon realms, but in the end it faded, its people absorbed into the growing kingdom of Scotland. In the Baltic lands, the kingdom of Livonia once flourished under the banners of crusading knights, its grand castles standing guard over vast forests. The knights ruled with an iron grip, their lands a fusion of medieval Christendom and older pagan traditions. But as time passed, their power waned, and Livonia splintered, disappearing into history, its fortresses crumbling into the earth, castles in the mist. Even now, traces of these forgotten kingdoms remain. A lonely castle perched upon a hill, its walls whispering of long-lost battles. A village bearing a name that few recognize, once the heart of a kingdom now vanished. An old coin buried beneath the soil, carrying the face of a ruler whose name has long been erased. The forgotten kingdoms of medieval Europe may no longer appear on modern maps, but their spirits linger. In the quiet ruins, in the pages of old chronicles, and in the echoes of forgotten songs, their stories wait for those who seek them, for those who listen to the wind and hear the whispers of the past. The gentle sounds of historical European cities at night. As the sun sets over the rooftops of Europe's old cities, a hush begins to settle. The hurried steps of the day slow, The streets breathe with a softer rhythm, and a different kind of beauty awakens in the dim glow of lanterns. Night in these ancient places is a world of quiet echoes, distant footsteps, and the soothing murmur of life winding down. The whisper of cobblestones. Walking through the streets of a historical European city at night is like stepping into a dream where time moves differently. The sound of footsteps on cobblestones is softer in the evening air, blending into the distant hum of conversation from a tucked-away cafe. In some streets, the stones still hold the memory of centuries past, where merchants once rushed through bustling markets and carriages rolled through narrow alleys. Now in the stillness, only the occasional bicycle or a slow-moving tram hums through the quiet night. The murmurs of hidden courtyards. Beyond the grand plazas and open boulevards, the city hides its quieter corners. Small courtyards where ivy climbs ancient stone walls and fountains whisper in the darkness. Water trickles softly, its sound timeless and unhurried. These secret places, unseen by the rush of daytime travelers, reveal their true magic in the silence of the night, where only the occasional rustling of leaves or the faint sound of distant music drifts through. The bells in the distance. Many old European cities still live by the rhythm of their bells. As midnight nears, church towers toll their slow, measured chimes, marking the passage of time in a way that feels almost eternal. The deep, resonant sound rolls over rooftops, echoing across empty squares, a gentle reminder of history still alive. In some places, the bells are joined by the faint call of a night watchman, a tradition that lingers in cities where the past and present blend seamlessly. The glow of street lights and quiet conversations, under the warm glow of street lamps, small cafes remain open, their golden light spilling onto the pavement. The clink of glasses and the occasional burst of laughter drift through the night, carried gently on the breeze. In Paris, lovers whisper along the Seine, their voices soft as the river glides beneath stone bridges. In Prague, musicians play beneath the arches of Charles Bridge, their melodies floating over the water. In Venice, the canals reflect the lanterns that flicker along the quiet pathways, and the distant splash of a gondola oar fades into the night. The echoes of time somewhere, a lone traveler walks through the empty streets, feeling the presence of history in the stillness. The same roads once carried poets, kings, and dreamers, their footsteps lost to time, but their essence lingering in the air. The night holds their stories, woven into the walls of old buildings, into the very stones beneath one's feet. To walk through a historical European city at night is to hear the gentle sounds of the past and present intertwining, a peaceful symphony of whispered voices, distant bells, and the soft breath of a city that never truly sleeps. The poetry and romance of the Victorian era. The Victorian era, stretching from the early 19th century into the dawn of the 20th, was a time of great change, filled with social upheavals, technological innovations, and a burgeoning sense of modernity. Yet nestled within the heart of this rapidly transforming world, there flourished a deep and abiding sense of poetry and romance that captivated the imagination of the people of the time. It was an era where love was written into the very fabric of society, where the idea of romance was a delicate dance of words, gestures, and emotions. Poetry, in particular, became a vessel for expressing the complexities of love, loss, longing, and the timeless beauty of human connection. The romantic ideal. In the heart of Victorian society, romance was both an ideal and a ritual, a concept imbued with deep emotion, strict societal codes, and a yearning for connection that transcended the constraints of everyday life. For many, the idea of love was painted in tones of longing and sorrow, of passion carefully restrained by the boundaries of propriety. Romance was not simply about love in its purest form, but was also the reflection of an era's pursuit of beauty, purity, and devotion. The poetic expressions of this time often reflected these themes, an exploration of love that was both emotional and intellectual, sometimes even spiritual. It was in the works of poets such as Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Robert Browning, Alfred Lord Tennyson, and Christina Rossetti where this romantic ideal came to life. Their poems spoke not only of the warmth of the heart, but also of the delicate fragility of human connections. Love was not merely a feeling, but an art, something carefully constructed and meant to endure through the hardships of time and circumstance. Letters of the heart. One of the most enchanting aspects of Victorian romance was the art of letter writing. In an age before telephones and the internet, a handwritten letter was the primary means of communication between lovers, friends, and family members separated by distance. Letters were often filled with poetry, as individuals used the written word to express their deepest emotions. For many, these letters became treasures, not just for the words they contained, but for the very act of receiving something so personal and intimate. Perhaps the most famous love letters of the Victorian era were those exchanged between the poet Robert Browning and his future wife Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Elizabeth, an invalid and an established poet in her own right, had lived a somewhat secluded life under the control of her overbearing father. When she met Robert, their relationship blossomed through a series of passionate, beautifully written letters. Their correspondence is a testament to the power of words to transcend the barriers of time, space, and social expectations. The emotion contained in these letters, filled with longing, affection, and intellectual connection, remains a cherished part of literary history. The poets of the Victorian age. The Victorian poets were experts in the language of love and longing, capturing the nuances of romance in ways that have continued to resonate for generations. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Sonnets from the Portuguese, written to her beloved Robert, is one of the most famous collections of love poems in English literature. In these sonnets, the poet explores the complexities of love with a tenderness that still stirs the soul. The opening lines of the first sonnet, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways," have become immortal, encapsulating the very essence of romantic devotion in simple, elegant language. Meanwhile, Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Lady of Shalott tells the story of a woman isolated in her tower, unable to participate in the world outside, until love calls her to the river. The poem is suffused with yearning, symbolizing the tension between duty and passion, freedom and restriction. Tennyson's romanticism blends with melancholy, creating a tragic beauty that captures the soul of the Victorian era. Christina Rossetti, another prominent poet of the time, explored themes of love and loss with a unique blend of purity and melancholy. Her poem Remember encapsulates the Victorian ideal of enduring love, even in death. The haunting simplicity of her words speaks to the Victorian reverence for memory and devotion. Love that endures beyond the grave, a bond unbroken by time. Courtship and social rituals. In addition to the poetry and letters, romance in the Victorian era was also reflected in the rituals of courtship. The Victorian courtship ritual was an elaborate dance of propriety, where every gesture, look, and word carried meaning. Social expectations were high, and the act of falling in love and expressing one's affection had to follow a strict set of rules. In the more formal stages of courtship, the role of the man was often to woo, while the woman's role was to preserve her modesty and protect her reputation. The couple would often meet in public spaces, such as garden parties or concerts, where their interaction was closely watched by others. A glance, a shared smile, or a soft word spoken in the presence of chaperones held the weight of 1,000 unspoken emotions. The act of engagement was an even greater demonstration of commitment, symbolizing not just love, but a future built on mutual respect, loyalty, and understanding. The exchange of engagement rings, a tradition that became widely popular in the Victorian era, was seen as the ultimate token of devotion. It was not simply a piece of jewelry, but a symbol of a lifetime of promises, of a love that would withstand the trials and tribulations of life. Love and the Victorian imagination. The poetry and romance of the Victorian era reflected a deeply imaginative and idealized vision of love. Romance in the Victorian imagination was not confined to the ordinary or mundane. It was elevated to something transcendent. The beauty of a lover's gaze, the delicate touch of a hand, the rustling of a lover's skirts on a moonlit night were all subjects of romantic longing and idealization. The Victorian era's literature and poetry were rich with imagery, often placing love within the larger context of beauty and nature. Nature itself was a common metaphor in Victorian romance. Love was often compared to a garden in full bloom, to the eternal flow of a river, or to the endless expanse of a sky filled with stars. The use of such natural imagery brought an otherworldly quality to romance, making it seem like love itself was a part of something vast and eternal. The enduring legacy of Victorian romance. Though the Victorian era has long passed, the poetry and romance of this time continue to influence our modern understanding of love. The words penned by poets like Browning, Tennyson, and Rossetti remain as relevant today as they were then, evoking timeless emotions that still speak to the heart. The tradition of letter writing and the art of courtship may have changed, but the deep desire for connection and the yearning for love remain at the heart of the human experience. The Victorian era's legacy of romantic poetry, with its delicate balance of passion and propriety, continues to inspire lovers, poets, and dreamers across the world. In a world that often moves too fast, the slow, tender beauty of Victorian romance offers a timeless reminder that love, in its truest form, is an art that has the power to endure, to heal, and to connect us all. The golden age of Dutch painting, art that captured light. The 17th century, often referred to as the Dutch Golden Age, stands as one of the most remarkable periods in the history of art. It was a time when Dutch painters, working amidst a flourishing society of commerce, exploration, and scientific discovery, produced works of unparalleled mastery and beauty. Amidst the bustling streets of Amsterdam, the serene canals of Leiden, and the quiet villages of Holland, the artists of this age captured not just the world around them, but the very essence of light itself. Their paintings brought to life a new world, a world defined by realism, subtlety, and an intimate connection to everyday life. The rise of Dutch painting. The 17th century was a period of immense social, political, and economic change for the Netherlands. After gaining independence from Spain in the late 16th century, the Dutch Republic rose to power as a center of trade, finance, and culture. Cities like Amsterdam flourished as the heart of a vast trading empire, and a thriving bourgeoisie class sought to adorn their homes with art that reflected their newfound wealth and taste. This shift in the social landscape created fertile ground for the rise of a distinctly Dutch school of painting, one that focused on realism and the beauty of ordinary life. In contrast to the grand religious and mythological subjects of the Renaissance, the Dutch Golden Age painters turned their attention to the world around them. They painted landscapes, still lifes, portraits, and scenes of daily life, capturing the details of their environment with a precision and care that would define the period. This shift was not only a reflection of changing tastes, but also a testament to the democratic nature of the Republic, where artists were no longer beholden to religious or aristocratic patrons, but could engage directly with the middle class. The mastery of light, one of the defining features of Dutch Golden Age painting, is its remarkable ability to capture light. Dutch painters, especially those from the city of Delft, mastered the play of light and shadow, using it to create atmosphere, depth, and emotion. This was not merely an aesthetic choice, but a reflection of the era's growing fascination with optics and the science of light. The painter's brush became a tool not just for rendering form, but for capturing the transient quality of light as it shifted across objects and surfaces. At the forefront of this exploration of light was the great master, Rembrandt van Rijn. His paintings, filled with rich contrasts of light and shadow, seemed to glow with a warm, almost mystical radiance. Rembrandt's ability to depict the subtleties of light, whether it was the soft glow of a candlelit interior or the dramatic chiaroscuro of a biblical scene, was unparalleled. His portraits, in particular, seemed to breathe with life, as if the light itself were illuminating the soul of his subjects. In works like The Night Watch and Self-Portrait with Two Circles, Rembrandt used light not just to model form, but to express the inner lives of his subjects, imbuing his paintings with a depth of feeling that transcended the physical world. Equally skilled in the manipulation of light was Johannes Vermeer, another towering figure of the Dutch Golden Age. Vermeer's works, such as The Milkmaid and Girl with a Pearl Earring, are beloved for their serene beauty and the quiet intimacy of their subjects. In Vermeer's paintings, light flows across delicate surfaces, creating a sense of calm and stillness that draws the viewer in. His mastery of the effects of natural light, whether the soft glow streaming through a window or the way it dances on the surface of water, brings an almost photographic realism to his work. His paintings seem to capture a fleeting moment, like a gentle breath held in time, a focus on everyday life. While artists in other parts of Europe were focused on grand historical or religious themes, Dutch painters turned their attention to the everyday life of ordinary people. This embrace of the commonplace was one of the hallmarks of the Dutch Golden Age. Paintings of domestic interiors, family gatherings, and tranquil landscapes became a reflection of the new social order in the Dutch Republic, where the middle class enjoyed greater influence and wealth. One of the most beloved genres to emerge during this period was the still life. Dutch still lifes, such as those by painters like Peter Claes and Willem Kalf, are famed for their meticulous attention to detail and their ability to imbue ordinary objects with meaning. A simple bowl of fruit or a glass of wine was transformed into a masterpiece, its textures and colors rendered with astonishing realism. These works, while celebrating the beauty of the material world, also carried deeper symbolism. The careful arrangement of objects often conveyed messages about the passage of time, the fleeting nature of life, and the moral virtues of frugality and restraint. In the realm of portraiture, Dutch painters also excelled. Portraits were commissioned not just by royalty and aristocrats, but by the growing bourgeoisie, who wished to preserve their image for posterity. The works of painters like Frans Hals, who painted lively, energetic portraits of wealthy citizens, and Jan Vermeer, who captured intimate moments of women reading letters or making music, offered glimpses into the lives of everyday people. These portraits, with their vivid attention to detail and subtle play of light, created lasting impressions of the individuals they depicted, elevating their lives into art. The Dutch landscape. The landscapes of the Dutch Golden Age are another testament to the period's obsession with light and detail. Artists like Jacob van Rijsdal and Albert Cuyp painted sweeping views of the Dutch countryside, filled with wide open skies and serene rivers that seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. These landscapes were not just depictions of nature, they were a reflection of the Dutch relationship with the land itself. The country's constant struggle to reclaim land from the sea through its elaborate system of dikes and canals was mirrored in the art of the time. The skies above the flat landscape, so often painted in dynamic shifts of light and color, seemed to speak to the Dutch people's deep connection to the natural world and their ability to tame it. But even in the most tranquil landscapes, there is a sense of movement, a windmill's blades turning, a distant boat gliding along the water. The play of light on the water's surface or the light breaking through a cloud give these paintings a sense of life and energy. These landscapes evoke a feeling of calm, but also a sense of quiet triumph, as if the land itself was a living testament to the Dutch mastery of both nature and light. The legacy of the Dutch Golden Age. The art of the Dutch Golden Age continues to captivate audiences today, drawing millions of visitors to museums and galleries around the world. The quiet elegance of Vermeer's interiors, the dramatic contrasts of Rembrandt's portraits, and the meticulously rendered still lifes all continue to resonate with their timeless beauty. The Dutch painters of the 17th century were not just masters of their craft, they were masters of light itself. In their work, they captured not only the world around them, but the very essence of the fleeting moments of life. Their paintings remind us that beauty is not just in grand gestures or sweeping landscapes, but in the quiet, intimate moments that make up our everyday lives. They remind us to see the world as they saw it, with attention, wonder, and a deep appreciation for the light that touches all things. The Dutch Golden Age, with its radiant paintings and careful depictions of light, remains one of the most extraordinary periods in the history of art. It is an era where everyday life was transformed into something eternal, where the ordinary became extraordinary through the magic of the artist's hand. The legacy of that age continues to illuminate our world today, offering a glimpse into the past that speaks to the present, inviting us to see the beauty of light in the world around us. The Whispering Stones, Europe's ancient megaliths scattered across the tranquil landscapes of Europe. Towering stones stand as silent witnesses to the past, their origins shrouded in mystery. These ancient megaliths, some standing proudly against the tests of time for thousands of years, evoke a sense of wonder and awe. From the windswept hills of Britain to the sunlit plains of France, the presence of these massive stones is a reminder of a long-forgotten era, where the earth seemed to hum with secrets only the stones could understand. These monumental structures, some arranged in intricate circles, others standing solitary, form a connection between the past and the present, linking modern-day explorers with ancient cultures whose ways of life remain largely unknown. The mystery of the stones. The term megalith comes from the Greek words mega, meaning large, and lithos, meaning stone. These structures created by early human societies were built using large stones, often without the aid of modern tools or technology. The purpose of the megaliths has fascinated historians, archaeologists, and philosophers for centuries. Were they constructed as places of worship, astronomical observatories, or symbols of power and status? While much of their true purpose remains unknown, one thing is certain: they were not created casually. These stones were carefully selected, transported, and positioned with great effort, suggesting they held profound meaning for the societies that built them. The oldest megalithic structures date back to the Neolithic period, around 6,000 years ago, and can be found across Europe, particularly in places like Britain, France, Spain, and the Baltic states. These stones are remnants of a time when humans lived in harmony with the natural world, paying careful attention to the rhythms of the earth and the movements of the stars. The megaliths speak to an ancient understanding of the world, one where the forces of nature were not just to be observed, but revered and woven into the very fabric of daily life. Stone circles, the echoes of ancient rituals. Perhaps the most famous of all megalithic structures are the stone circles, with Stonehenge in England being the most iconic. Located in the heart of the English countryside, Stonehenge has long captivated the imagination of visitors. Its colossal stones, arranged in a circular formation, stand as silent sentinels to the past. The purpose of Stonehenge, like many megalithic sites, remains a subject of intense debate. Was it a temple dedicated to the gods, an ancient astronomical observatory, or a ceremonial site used to mark the changing of the seasons? The alignment of the stones with the solstices suggests that the builders had an intimate knowledge of the celestial movements, using the stones as a kind of timekeeper that marked the passage of seasons and the cycles of nature. As the sun rises and sets behind the stones, casting long shadows across the landscape, it's easy to imagine the rituals and celebrations that once took place here. The sound of drums, the chanting of voices, and the rustle of robes would have filled the air as ancient people gathered to honor the earth and sky. Today, as the wind whispers through the stones, we can almost hear the echoes of those long-lost ceremonies. Stonehenge is not alone in its mystery. Across Europe, countless other stone circles, such as those found in Brittany, France, or the Ring of Brodgar in Scotland's Orkney Islands, stand in solemn silence, each telling its own story of human connection to the cosmos. The dolmens, ancient tombs of the past. Not all megalithic structures are circles. Many take the form of dolmens, massive stone tombs built by prehistoric peoples. These stone chambers, often constructed with large capstones resting on upright stones, were used for burial purposes, though the specifics of their function are still unclear. Dolmens can be found scattered throughout Europe, especially in regions like the Iberian Peninsula, Brittany, and Ireland. In these remote locations, the dolmens rise up from the earth like quiet sentinels, guarding the secrets of those who lived thousands of years ago. The dolmens, with their simple yet imposing structures, were often placed in locations that held significance, on hilltops, near waterways, or within sacred groves. The stones themselves were often transported over great distances, indicating that the people who constructed them possessed a sophisticated knowledge of engineering and a deep connection to their surroundings. The practice of burying the dead within these stone chambers suggests that the ancient peoples believed in an afterlife, one in which the deceased would be protected and honored by the very stones that marked their resting place. Today, standing before these dolmens, one cannot help but feel a sense of reverence. The stones seem to hum with the weight of history, their quiet presence evoking a deep connection to the past. Though the rituals of the ancient world have long since faded, the dolmens still stand as silent witnesses to the lives and beliefs of the people who created them. The menhirs, singular giants in the landscape. Unlike the arranged stone circles or tombs, menhirs are solitary stones that stand upright in the landscape, often towering over the surrounding terrain. These individual monoliths are found in many parts of Europe, from the plains of southern France to the coasts of Ireland. The menhirs, like their larger counterparts, were carefully chosen and positioned, their size and weight suggesting that they held great symbolic significance for the societies that placed them. Some menhirs are part of larger alignments or groups, while others stand alone, their purpose a mystery that continues to intrigue archaeologists. The menhir's isolation only adds to their mystique. Standing tall against the sky, they seem to embody the very essence of ancient Europe, timeless, enduring, and rooted in a deep connection to the earth. The way these stones catch the light, their surfaces weathered by centuries of wind and rain, creates a sense of stillness and serenity. One can almost imagine the ancient people who once came to these stones, gazing up at them with a sense of awe and reverence. What did they see in these monolithic giants? What stories did they tell? Perhaps, like the stone circles, these menhirs were markers of significant places, symbols of power, or tools for observing the heavens. Yet their silence today leaves us with more questions than answers. The enduring legacy of the megaliths. The ancient megaliths of Europe are not just relics of the past. They are living monuments to the enduring connection between humans and the earth. In an age of modern technology and rapid change, these stones stand as a reminder of a time when people lived in closer harmony with the natural world, when the earth and the sky were central to human experience. Visiting these megaliths today is a deeply meditative experience. Whether standing before the imposing stones of Stonehenge, wandering among the dolmens of Brittany, or gazing up at a solitary menhir, one cannot help but feel a sense of peace and wonder. The stones speak to us in ways that words cannot. Their very presence evokes a deep sense of connection to the past, as if the whisper of ancient voices can still be heard in the rustling of the leaves or the soft murmur of the wind. The megaliths may no longer serve as places of worship or burial, but they continue to inspire reverence and awe in those who encounter them. These stones, weathered by time, hold within them the echoes of forgotten rituals, lost traditions, and ancient knowledge. They are more than just monuments to the past. They are reminders of our enduring connection to the earth and to the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of time. As we stand before these ancient stones, we are reminded that we too are part of a long history, one that stretches back through the ages and continues to whisper its secrets to those who listen closely. In the stillness of the megaliths, we find a moment of peace, a quiet connection to a time long past, and a glimpse of the timeless beauty that still exists in the world. The tranquil world of monasteries and abbeys. In the quiet corners of Europe, nestled among rolling hills, hidden valleys, or perched on mountaintops, lie monasteries and abbeys, ancient havens of peace and reflection. These sacred spaces have withstood the tests of time, offering a refuge not only for those who sought spiritual solace, but also for those in search of quiet contemplation amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The tranquil world of monasteries and abbeys, with their timeless architecture, meditative landscapes, and rich histories, continues to captivate the soul, inviting visitors to step into a slower, more peaceful existence. The very word monastery conjures up images of serenity and spiritual devotion. These places, often secluded and surrounded by nature, have long been sanctuaries for monks, nuns, and other religious figures who dedicated their lives to prayer, meditation, and service. Over the centuries, monasteries and abbeys have become symbols of both physical and spiritual stillness, offering a glimpse into a way of life that values contemplation, simplicity, and harmony with the natural world. The architecture of peace. The first thing that strikes a visitor to any monastery or abbey is its architecture, both imposing and serene. Built with a sense of reverence for the sacred and a deep understanding of the natural environment, these structures often feature stone walls, high arches, and soaring ceilings that seem to reach toward the heavens. The quiet grandeur of the buildings, often made from local stone, blends harmoniously with the surrounding landscape. Whether it is the ancient stonework of a Cistercian abbey in France or the Gothic elegance of a Benedictine monastery in Spain, the architecture invites both awe and calm. In the heart of many monasteries, the cloisters stand as one of the most peaceful places. Cloisters are covered walkways that surround a central courtyard, often with gardens or a fountain in the center. These spaces were not just for walking, they were places for quiet reflection, where monks and nuns would gather, pray, or simply enjoy moments of solitude in the company of nature. The soft sound of water trickling from a fountain, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the chirping of birds combine to create a soundtrack of peace, offering a glimpse into the serene lives of those who called the monastery home. Many abbeys and monasteries also feature expansive gardens, which were not only beautiful but also practical. Monks and nuns grew medicinal herbs, vegetables, and fruits, which were used for healing and sustenance. These gardens were places of work, but also of rest. Walking among the flowers and trees, one cannot help but be drawn into the stillness that seems to hang in the air. The soft colors of blooming flowers, the earthy scent of fresh herbs, and the tranquil hum of nature all work together to create an atmosphere of profound calm. A life of simple rhythm. Monasteries and abbeys were founded on the principle of simplicity. The monastic lifestyle was one of balance, focusing on prayer, work, and study. The rhythmic routines of life in these places, rising at dawn for prayer, working in the fields or scriptoriums during the day, and retiring to bed at night, created a sense of peace and purpose that was free from the distractions of the outside world. It was a life in which each moment was valued for its simplicity and sacredness. In a world where time seems to move at a frantic pace, the monastic routine provides a refreshing contrast. Life was governed by the hours of prayer, which punctuated the day, creating a sense of timelessness. The bell would ring to signal the hours for prayer, calling the community to gather for reflection and meditation. These sacred rituals, repeated daily, provided structure to the life of those living within the abbey walls, offering both a sense of purpose and peace. There is something deeply calming in the thought of these quiet moments of spiritual connection that were woven into the very fabric of daily life. For the monks and nuns who lived in these sacred spaces, the act of work was also a form of worship. Whether it was copying manuscripts in the scriptorium, tending to the gardens, or brewing beer as a way of sustaining the community, the rhythm of work was seen as a means of honoring God in the world. This integration of work and spiritual practice brought a sense of fulfillment and tranquility, as every task, no matter how small, was connected to a greater purpose. The spiritual heartbeat of Europe, the monasteries and abbeys of Europe were not only places of spiritual retreat, but also vital centers of learning and culture. In the early centuries of the medieval period, monasteries were the only places where books were copied and preserved. The illuminated manuscripts produced in monastic scriptoriums are some of the most treasured artifacts of the past, showcasing a dedication to knowledge and beauty that transcends time. The quiet devotion of these scholars, hunched over their work in the stillness of the abbey, is reflected in the intricate artwork and carefully transcribed texts that survive to this day. In addition to their work as centers of learning, monasteries and abbeys often played crucial roles in their communities. Many served as places of refuge during times of conflict or strife, offering protection and aid to those in need. Their role as spiritual sanctuaries extended beyond their walls, offering a sense of stability and peace to those who sought solace. The tranquil life of the monks and nuns, devoted to prayer and service, became a model of grace and humility for the communities that surrounded them. The soundscape of tranquility. One of the most distinctive aspects of the monastic experience is its soundscape. In contrast to the noise and distractions of modern life, the sounds of a monastery are subtle and soothing. The soft footsteps of monks as they move through the cloisters, the faint echo of chanting during prayer, the distant tolling of bells marking the hours. These sounds create a sense of rhythm and continuity that extends beyond the physical world. In the evening, the sounds of the abbey become even more poignant. The chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, and the gentle flow of nearby streams create a symphony of stillness, inviting visitors to pause, listen, and reflect. The air seems to hold a sense of reverence, as though the very landscape itself is a sanctuary. The quietude of the evening hours invites a sense of peace that can be felt in every corner of the abbey. A place of healing. For centuries, monasteries and abbeys have been places of healing, not just for the body, but for the soul. The monks and nuns who lived in these communities often served as healers, using herbal remedies, prayers, and spiritual practices to bring comfort to the sick and suffering. The gardens of the monasteries were filled with medicinal plants, carefully cultivated to treat a variety of ailments. These plants, harvested with reverence and care, were used to create potions, salves, and teas that offered relief and comfort. In the modern world, the idea of healing through quiet contemplation and connection with nature may seem quaint, but it is a practice that endures. The peaceful environments of monasteries continue to attract those seeking respite from the demands of daily life. Whether it is through a retreat in the countryside, a visit to an abbey, or a quiet moment of reflection, the healing power of stillness remains as potent as ever. The enduring peace of monastic life today. As we rush through our busy lives, we can find solace in the quiet legacy of the monasteries and abbeys that continue to stand as testaments to a slower, more intentional way of living. These places, with their sacred architecture, rhythmic routines, and tranquil surroundings, remind us of the importance of peace, reflection, and connection. Though the world around us may be in constant motion, the monasteries remain grounded, offering a haven where time seems to slow and the noise of the world fades away. To walk among the stone walls of an ancient abbey, to sit in the peaceful cloisters, or stroll through a garden, is to step back in time, to reconnect with a simpler rhythm of life. In these sacred spaces, we are reminded that amidst the chaos of the world, there is always room for peace, for contemplation, and for a return to stillness. The ancient roads of Europe pass through history. The ancient roads of Europe, some of the oldest in the world, are more than just routes from one place to another. They are threads that weave through time, connecting the past with the present. Worn by the footsteps of countless travelers, these roads have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the march of armies, and the quiet passage of ordinary people. To walk along them today is to follow in the footsteps of history, to trace the paths that shape the development of cultures, civilizations, and entire continents. These roads, etched into the landscape, tell stories of human ambition, exploration, and perseverance. The Roman roads, engineering marvels of the ancient world. Perhaps the most famous of Europe's ancient roads are those built by the Romans, stretching across the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, from the rolling hills of Britain to the sun-drenched plains of North Africa. The Roman roads were more than mere thoroughfares. They were a testament to the ingenuity and organizational prowess of one of history's greatest empires. The Romans were master engineers, and their roads were marvels of construction. Built with precision and care, these roads were designed to stand the test of time. They were constructed in multiple layers with a foundation of large stones to ensure durability, followed by smaller stones and gravel to create a smooth surface. The Romans even created a camber, the slight arch in the middle of the road, to allow water to drain off, ensuring that their roads would remain usable in all weather conditions. These roads were not only essential for military and administrative purposes, enabling the swift movement of Roman legions and the efficient management of the empire, but they also facilitated trade, cultural exchange, and communication. The Roman road network stretched across thousands of miles, creating a connected world where ideas, goods, and people could travel more easily than ever before. Many of these roads, such as the famous Via Appia in Italy, remain in use today, a lasting legacy of the Roman Empire's enduring influence. The Silk Roads, connecting East and West. While the Roman roads helped unite the Mediterranean world, the Silk Roads connected Europe with the far reaches of Asia. These ancient trade routes, stretching from China to the Mediterranean, were not one single road, but a network of paths that traversed deserts, mountains, and plains. The Silk Roads were the lifeblood of cultural exchange, allowing goods like silk, spices, and precious metals to flow westward, while knowledge, art, and ideas made their way east. The importance of the Silk Roads lies not only in the material goods they facilitated, but also in the cultural and intellectual exchange they fostered. Great cities such as Constantinople, Samarkand, and Baghdad became thriving centers of commerce and learning, where traders, scholars, and travelers from all over the world could meet, share ideas, and influence one another. The Silk Roads were, in essence, a network of connections that brought together diverse cultures, creating a rich tapestry of history that spanned continents. While the routes themselves were often challenging and dangerous, the legacy of the Silk Roads lives on in the cultural diversity of Europe and Asia. The roads were a conduit for the spread of religions such as Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, and they were instrumental in shaping the art, science, and philosophy of both the East and the West. The pilgrim paths, walking in the footsteps of saints. Europe's ancient roads also have a deeply spiritual dimension. For centuries, pilgrims have walked the same paths in search of enlightenment, healing, and spiritual fulfillment. One of the most famous of these pilgrimage routes is the Camino de Santiago in Spain, a network of paths leading to the tomb of St. James. James in the city of Santiago de Compostela. The Camino de Santiago, or the Way of St. James, has been a major pilgrimage route for over 1,000 years, attracting millions of pilgrims from all over the world. The journey, which can take weeks or even months to complete, is not just a physical challenge, but a deeply spiritual and transformative experience. The road winds through rolling hills, quiet forests, and picturesque villages, offering pilgrims a chance to reflect on their lives, find peace, and connect with the sacred. The Camino is just one of many pilgrimage routes that crisscross Europe, each with its own unique story and significance. The Via Francigena, which stretches from Canterbury in England to Rome in Italy, was another important pilgrimage route during the Middle Ages. Pilgrims who walked these roads sought both spiritual enlightenment and the forgiveness of sins, finding solace in the act of walking and the quiet rhythm of the journey. These ancient pilgrimage roads, once the sole preserve of those seeking spiritual solace, have today become a path for those in search of personal discovery and quiet reflection. Walking along these routes, one can't help but feel a sense of connection to the many pilgrims who have passed through before, each one finding their own meaning in the journey. The roads of the Vikings. paths of exploration and conquest. Another set of ancient roads that shaped Europe were those created by the Vikings. Though the Vikings are often remembered for their raids and conquests, their roads were not just about battle, they were also about exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. The Viking longships, which could navigate both the seas and inland rivers, allowed these Norse explorers to travel far and wide, reaching as far as North America, the Middle East, and North Africa. In their exploration of Europe, the Vikings followed natural waterways, creating a network of trading routes that spanned from the British Isles to the shores of Russia. These paths, often along rivers like the Volga, the Dnieper, and the Seine, facilitated trade between the Vikings and other cultures, as well as the exchange of ideas and technology. The Vikings were not just raiders, they were also skilled traders, artisans, and farmers, and their roads were as much about connecting people as they were about expansion. The Viking legacy can still be seen in the many historical sites and artifacts scattered along these ancient paths. The roads they traveled were often wild and rugged, shaped by the landscape itself. Today, as we walk along these routes or visit Viking archaeological sites, we can trace the movements of these explorers and experience a glimpse of the world they once navigated. The legacy of the ancient roads. The ancient roads of Europe are more than just physical pathways. They are the veins that pulse with the history of civilizations, the trails that tell the stories of conquests, discoveries, and spiritual quests. Whether built by the Romans for military expediency, by merchants seeking new markets, or by pilgrims searching for divine grace, these roads have left a deep and lasting imprint on the European landscape. Today, as we walk along these ancient routes, we are reminded of the countless footsteps that have preceded us, footsteps of soldiers, traders, kings, and common folk, all traveling along the same paths that have stood for centuries. These roads have borne witness to the ebb and flow of empires, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the quiet passage of time. They are timeless, offering us a chance to connect with the past, reflect on our own journeys, and find solace in the slow, steady rhythm of the world around us. The ancient roads of Europe are not just relics of the past. They are living reminders of the interconnectedness of humanity. The routes that once united empires, kingdoms, and distant cultures now serve as pathways for reflection, exploration, and understanding. As we walk their length, we are not only traversing the land, but also stepping through the pages of history itself. The haunting beauty of ruined castles and palaces, scattered across the landscapes of Europe, silent and time-worn, stand the ruins of castles and palaces that once echoed with the voices of nobility, the clash of swords, and the whispers of intrigue. Now, these crumbling remnants are places of quiet solitude, their broken towers and ivy-clad walls telling stories of a forgotten past. There is a haunting beauty to their decay, an elegance in their erosion as they slowly surrender to nature and time. The echoes of history. Each ruined castle and palace carries the weight of history. Once symbols of power and grandeur, they were fortresses against invasion, homes to royalty, and the settings of momentous events. Some fell to war, others to abandonment, their walls no longer needed in a world that moved beyond swords and stone defenses. Yet even in their ruined state, they remain, whispering of lost battles, forgotten feasts, and the lives of those who once called them home. Walking through the remains of a once mighty stronghold, one can imagine knights preparing for battle in the courtyard, lords and ladies gazing from high windows, and the flickering glow of torches lighting long stone corridors. Though their grandeur has faded, their presence lingers, woven into the fabric of time. The beauty of decay. There is a strange and solemn beauty in ruins. Ivy climbs the broken walls, soft moss carpets the stone floors, and nature gently reclaims what was once built by human hands. A once thriving great hall, where nobles feasted and music filled the air, may now be open to the sky. Its only guests the birds that nest in its hollowed rafters. Towers that once stood defiant against siege now crumble gracefully, their jagged edges softened by years of wind and rain. The passage of time adds a layer of melancholy, but also a kind of peace. The stillness of an abandoned castle feels sacred, as if the weight of history hushes the world around it. Footsteps echo against empty corridors. Wind moves through shattered windows like a ghostly breath, and the distant past feels just within reach. Legends and ghost stories. With their dramatic silhouettes and air of mystery, it is no surprise that ruined castles and palaces have inspired countless legends. Many are said to be haunted, their lost inhabitants lingering in the shadows, their spirits unable to leave the places they once called home. There are tales of ghostly figures seen in moonlit towers, of spectral horses galloping through broken gates, and of whispers that rise with the wind. Some stories speak of doomed love affairs, of noble hearts betrayed, of restless souls searching for something left unfinished. These legends give the ruins an even deeper sense of mystery, as if the past is not entirely gone, but still lingers in the air. Nature's embrace. As time erodes the stone, nature weaves itself into the ruins, creating a perfect harmony between human history and the wild world. Vines creep along ancient archways, trees grow within forgotten chambers, and wildflowers bloom where once there were marble floors. It is a gentle reminder that all things return to the earth, that even the grandest of structures eventually yield to the quiet patience of time. Yet rather than erasing the beauty of these places, nature enhances them. A castle ruin at sunset, bathed in golden light, framed by the deep greens of the forest, is a sight both breathtaking and serene. Mist rolling over the remains of a palace in the early morning gives it an otherworldly quality, as if it exists outside of time itself. The allure of ruins. Why are we drawn to these places? Perhaps it is the contrast between what was and what remains, the silent poetry of history slowly fading into the landscape. Perhaps it is the stories they hold, the unspoken memories that still seem to whisper from their broken stones. Ruins invite us to pause, to reflect, to listen. They ask nothing of us but to be present, to feel the passage of time in the worn steps, the crumbling walls, the softened edges of what was once mighty and unyielding. In their stillness, there is peace. In their silence, there is beauty. To stand before a ruined castle or palace is to stand before history itself, not in the pages of a book, but in the very stones beneath our feet. These places remind us of the impermanence of all things, but also of the quiet, enduring grace of what remains. They are not merely relics of the past. They are testaments to the beauty of time's gentle touch. The secret tunnels and hidden passages of European cities beneath the cobbled streets and grand facades of Europe's most storied cities lies a hidden world, an intricate web of tunnels, forgotten corridors, and concealed passageways, each whispering secrets of the past. These shadowy paths, often carved into rock or winding through centuries-old stone, hold memories of intrigue, escape, and mystery. Some were built for war, others for smuggling, and some simply to connect places in ways the public would never see. To walk above them is to tread unknowingly upon layers of history hidden just out of sight. A world beneath our feet, from Paris to Prague, Edinburgh to Naples, many European cities have more beneath them than meets the eye. Underneath the lively streets, the markets, and the bustling cafes, tunnels stretch in all directions, leading to forgotten chambers, underground rivers, and secret meeting places. Some were carved by hand in ancient times, their stone walls worn smooth by the passage of time. Others were added later, their purpose shifting with the needs of history, first as hidden routes for monks and kings, then as wartime shelters, and later as tourist curiosities. In some places, entire underground cities exist, layered beneath the modern world like echoes of another time. In others, a single narrow passage leads from one forgotten doorway to another, a reminder that secrecy was once as much a part of city life as the open squares above. Tunnels of escape and intrigue. Many of these tunnels were created for one purpose: to disappear. Monarchs, nobles, and revolutionaries all needed ways to evade capture, and hidden passages became their salvation. Castles often had escape tunnels leading out into the countryside, allowing rulers to slip away unnoticed in times of siege. Some palaces had concealed doorways behind bookcases or beneath rugs, leading into narrow corridors that could spirit their occupants to safety in an instant. During wars and uprisings, rebels and resistance fighters used these same tunnels to move undetected. The catacombs of Paris, once simple quarries, became secret pathways for revolutionaries, while beneath the streets of London, hidden tunnels connected government buildings, allowing for discreet movements in times of crisis. Smugglers, thieves, and forbidden meetings. Beyond their use in warfare and escape, underground tunnels played a vital role in less lawful pursuits. Smugglers, ever resourceful, turned hidden waterways and forgotten cellars into routes for transporting contraband. In port cities, underground tunnels led from docks to taverns and warehouses, allowing goods and people to be moved without drawing attention. In some cities, these tunnels were meeting places for those who wished to remain unseen. Secret societies, forbidden lovers, and those planning revolutions all gathered in the dim light of underground chambers, safe from prying eyes. Beneath the grandeur of royal courts, whispers of conspiracy traveled through stone corridors, hidden from the lavish feasts and glittering chandeliers above. The beauty of forgotten spaces. Though many tunnels are dark, damp, and filled with the weight of history, there is beauty in their silence. Some are lined with intricate brickwork, their arched ceilings a testament to the craftsmanship of the past. Others open into grand underground halls where candlelight once flickered on stone walls, casting shadows that danced with the echoes of long-lost voices. The tunnels beneath Edinburgh's old town, abandoned centuries ago, still carry the ghostly traces of the people who once lived in their depths. In Naples, the ancient Greek and Roman cisterns now serve as quiet, flooded sanctuaries, their still waters reflecting the light in a way that feels almost otherworldly. And in Cappadocia, though far from the great capitals of Europe, underground cities stretch for miles, carved into soft rock, their corridors leading to vast chambers that once held entire communities hidden from view. A connection to the past. To step into one of these tunnels is to step back in time. The modern world disappears, replaced by the hush of history. Footsteps echo differently underground, their sound absorbed by stone that has heard centuries of secrets. In these hidden places, time feels slower, as if history itself lingers in the air. Today, many of these passages remain unexplored, their true extent unknown. Some have collapsed, their entrances lost to time, while others still wait beneath locked doors and forgotten alleyways. Yet for those who find them, for those who wander their dimly lit corridors and listen to the silence, there is a sense of wonder, a feeling of walking side by side with the past in a world that exists just beneath our feet. The ancient roads of Europe, paths through history. Winding through valleys, cutting across mountains, and stretching beneath towering forests, the ancient roads of Europe are more than just forgotten pathways. They are echoes of countless journeys, imprints of footsteps and hooves, traces of carts and carriages that carried travelers through centuries. These roads, some still in use, others barely visible beneath layers of moss and earth, whisper stories of merchants and monks, soldiers and storytellers, wanderers and kings. To walk them today is to step into the past, to feel the weight of history beneath your feet, and to follow the quiet pull of time itself. Paths worn by centuries long before the highways and railways of modern Europe, these roads were the arteries of civilization. The Romans, master builders of the ancient world, left behind a vast network of stone-paved roads that connected their empire, allowing legions to march, traders to prosper, and cultures to blend. The Via Appia, the Via Augusta, and the great roadways that linked Gaul to Germania still hold remnants of their once glorious construction, their stones polished, smooth by generations of travelers. But the roads of Europe did not begin with Rome. Before the first stone was ever laid, ancient footpaths crisscrossed the continent, following the natural contours of the land. These were the routes of migrating tribes, of prehistoric traders carrying amber from the Baltic, salt from the Alps, and tin from distant shores. These paths wound along rivers, over mountain passes, and through dense woodlands, shaping the connections between early civilizations. Roads of pilgrimage and trade. As centuries passed, these pathways became more than just routes of travel, they became lifelines of faith and commerce. Pilgrims walked them in quiet devotion, seeking holy sites that promise blessings, miracles, or salvation. The Camino de Santiago, one of the most famous pilgrimage routes in Europe, still draws thousands of travelers each year, their footsteps following the same worn paths that medieval seekers once took. Trade routes flourished as well, weaving through bustling markets and forgotten villages. The Silk Road, though often associated with Asia, extended deep into Europe, bringing silk, spices, and ideas from distant lands. The Amber Road, stretching from the cold shores of the Baltic to the warm waters of the Mediterranean, carried golden stones prized by kings and craftsmen alike. These roads did more than move goods. They moved cultures, blending languages, traditions, and knowledge along their winding courses. The silence of forgotten roads. Many of these ancient roads have faded, overtaken by forests, buried beneath new cities, or left to crumble beneath the weight of time. Some are little more than sunken paths through the countryside, their stones hidden beneath wildflowers and moss. Others remain, their purpose changed but their presence enduring, transformed into quiet hiking trails where modern feet tread the echoes of the past. To walk these forgotten roads is to step into a world where time slows. The trees whisper overhead, the wind moves through the grass, and the distant murmur of unseen streams fills the air. There is a stillness here, a sense that the past is not lost but merely resting, waiting for those who choose to listen. The roads that never end. Though empires have risen and fallen, though maps have changed and cities have grown, the old roads of Europe remain. Some still carry the hum of daily life, their cobblestones warmed by the afternoon sun, their archways framing glimpses of ancient walls. Others exist only in memory, their roots preserved in history books and half-remembered stories. But all of them, whether visible or hidden, remind us that the past is never far away. These roads are not just paths through the land, they are paths through time. They connect us not only to distant places, but to those who came before us, to their journeys, their struggles, and their dreams. And as long as there are footsteps to follow them, they will never truly be forgotten. The haunting beauty of ruined castles and palaces, scattered across the landscapes of Europe, from misty highlands to sun-drenched hills, the ruins of castles and palaces stand as silent witnesses to a time long past. Their walls, weathered by wind and rain, hold echoes of forgotten voices. Their towers, once proud and unyielding, now crumble under the weight of time. Ivy creeps through stone corridors, wildflowers bloom in empty courtyards, and the ghosts of history linger in the air like whispers on the wind. There is something undeniably haunting about these ruins, something that stirs the imagination, that invites us to step beyond the present and into the echoes of a lost world. Stones that remember, every ruined castle and palace has a story, and though their walls may be broken, the past is never truly silent. Once these places were filled with life, the laughter of nobles, the music of feasts, the quiet murmurs of those who served within. Kings and queens walked these halls, warriors sharpened their blades, and poets found inspiration in the flickering glow of candlelight. Now only fragments remain, a lone tower against the sky, an archway leading to nowhere, a staircase that climbs to emptiness. Yet within these ruins, history still breathes. The grooves worn into stone steps, the remnants of tapestries clinging to damp walls, the skeletal remains of once grand ballrooms, all speak of a world that existed before ours, a world that still lingers if we choose to listen. The beauty of decay. There is a strange beauty in these places, in the way nature gently reclaims what was once built by human hands. Moss carpets the floors where royalty once walked. Vines twist through shattered windows, and trees grow where great halls once stood. Time moves slowly here, softening sharp edges, blurring the line between man-made grandeur and the quiet persistence of the earth. Sunlight filters through broken roofs, casting golden light onto stone worn, smooth by centuries of wind. In the early morning, mist curl through empty doorways, and in the evening, the setting sun turns crumbling towers to silhouettes against the sky. There is a kind of poetry in this decay, a reminder that even the grandest of human creations must eventually yield to the passage of time. Echoes of the past. To walk through these ruins is to walk through history itself. Some castles fell to siege, their walls shattered by war. Others were abandoned, left to crumble as their purpose faded. Some palaces, once filled with extravagance, were stripped bare, their treasures scattered, their golden halls left to dust. Yet their presence remains. Travelers have long been drawn to these places, not just for their mystery, but for the stories they still hold. Some whisper of lost treasures buried beneath the ruins, of hidden tunnels leading to forgotten chambers. Others speak of ghosts who wander through the rubble, echoes of those who once lived and loved within these walls. Whether one believes in such things or not, there is an undeniable sense of something lingering, an invisible presence that turns the quiet into something more than mere silence. Time stands still. Despite their decay, ruined castles and palaces are never truly lifeless. Birds nest in the rafters of broken towers, the wind whistles through hollow corridors, and the seasons paint the stones in shifting colors, golden in autumn, silver in winter frost, green in the bloom of spring. These ruins remind us that time moves forward, yet also circles back, allowing us to glimpse what once was. They are places of reflection, of wonder, of quiet awe. To stand within their walls is to stand between past and present, to feel the weight of history, yet also the lightness of impermanence. There is peace in these places, a beauty that is both haunting and comforting, a reminder that all things change, yet nothing is ever truly gone. The ruins remain, waiting in their quiet majesty, inviting us to listen, to dream, to walk among the stones and feel for a moment the presence of time itself. The origins of European folklore and fairy tales. Deep within the forests, along mist-covered rivers, and in the glow of flickering hearth fires, the old stories of Europe were born. These were tales whispered by grandmothers to restless children, spun by traveling storytellers in village squares, and carried across generations like echoes of an ancient past. They were shaped by the land itself, by the dark woods of Germany, the rolling hills of England, the frozen lakes of Scandinavia, and the towering mountains of the Alps. These stories were more than just entertainment. They were reflections of fears, hopes, and the mysteries of the world, woven into the very fabric of European culture. The roots of the old stories, long before books and written records, folklore existed as an oral tradition, passed from one voice to another like a thread binding communities together. The earliest European tales were told in an age when the world seemed vast and filled with magic, when people lived in small villages surrounded by untamed wilderness, and when every shadow could hide a creature from legend. These stories were shaped by life itself, by the struggle to survive harsh winters, by encounters with strangers on the road, by the endless cycles of planting and harvest. They explain the unexplainable, giving meaning to natural events, from storms and droughts to the changing of the seasons. They warned of danger, taught lessons, and kept ancient traditions alive. Creatures of myth and mystery, throughout Europe, different cultures gave life to their own fantastic beings, yet certain themes wove them together. In the deep woods of Germany and France, witches and cunning tricksters lurked in the shadows, waiting to test the bravery of lost travelers. In the Nordic lands, trolls and elves moved unseen beneath the northern lights, while in the British Isles, fairies and spirits drifted between the human and supernatural worlds. Many of these creatures were shaped by fears of the unknown. The banshee's wail in Ireland foretold death, while will-o'-the-wisps led wanderers astray in the marshlands. In the Slavic world, the cunning Baba Yaga, an old woman with iron teeth and a house on chicken legs, tested those who dared approach her with riddles and trials. Though different in name and form, these beings served a common purpose: warning against foolishness, teaching respect for nature, and reminding people that the world was full of unseen forces. The rise of fairy tales. As time passed, these folk tales took on new life. In the medieval courts of Europe, storytellers transformed simple oral traditions into elaborate tales, filled with adventure, romance, and wonder. The medieval period gave rise to chivalric legends, knights on quests, enchanted castles, and noble deeds. Stories like those of King Arthur and his knights mixed real history with myth, creating timeless legends of honor and destiny. By the 17th and 18th centuries, fairy tales began to take written form, collected and reshaped by authors who sought to preserve them. In France, Charles Perrault penned tales like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, weaving old folklore into elegant, courtly stories. In Germany, the brothers Grimm gathered darker, more haunting versions of Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, and Rumpelstiltskin, capturing the eerie beauty of the original oral traditions. Echoes of the past. Though softened over time, the heart of these old stories still beats within modern fairy tales. They continue to teach lessons, to reflect fears and dreams, and to transport us into worlds where the impossible feels just within reach. The woods are still dark and full of secrets, the witches still lurk, and the heroes still rise. Even today, the origins of European folklore are all around us, in the ruins of castles, in the twisting paths of forests, in the quiet hush of a village at dusk. The stories remain, waiting to be told, waiting to remind us that somewhere, just beyond the veil of the ordinary, the magic of the old world still lingers. The gentle glow of gas lights, Europe before electricity. Before the brilliance of electric lights filled the streets, Europe was bathed in a softer, flickering glow. The warm amber light of gas lamps illuminated cobblestone streets, casting long shadows against the walls of old buildings. In the stillness of the night, the gentle hiss of burning gas was the only sound accompanying the slow footsteps of late wanderers. This was a world of twilight elegance, where cities came alive under the quiet charm of lamplight, and the night held a mystery all its own. The magic of the evening glow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, gas lamps flickered to life, one by one. Before automatic ignition, this was the work of lamplighters, men who moved through the streets at dusk, carrying long poles to ignite the lamps and bring warmth to the darkening world. In the early morning hours, they would return to extinguish them, marking the rhythm of day and night with their quiet duty. The glow of these lamps was different from the stark brightness of modern lights. It was softer, more inviting, casting a golden hue over city squares and winding alleys. Buildings took on a dreamlike quality, their details softened by the dancing flames within the glass lanterns. Lovers walked beneath their glow. Secret meetings took place in their shadows, and poets found inspiration in their gentle flicker. A world in half-light gaslight transformed the nights of Europe, turning once dark streets into places of life and movement. In cities like London, Paris, and Vienna, the arrival of gas lamps meant safer, more welcoming nights. Shop fronts glowed warmly, inviting late-night customers. Theaters and opera houses extended their performances into the evening, their grand facades glowing against the night sky. Cafes remained open, their windows spilling golden light onto the pavement as writers and philosophers gathered to discuss ideas. Yet despite its beauty, gaslight created a world of half-shadows, where darkness still lingered at the edges of vision. The pools of warm light left deep pockets of blackness between them, allowing mystery to survive in the quiet corners of the city. Fog rolling in from rivers and canals would soften the glow, creating an ethereal haze through which figures moved like ghosts. The romance of gaslit nights. There was something undeniably romantic about gaslit Europe. It was an era of quiet walks beneath glowing lanterns, of horse-drawn carriages gliding through the streets, their lamps reflecting off wet stones. It was a time when artists captured the golden glow in their paintings, and novelists set their most haunting and passionate scenes beneath its flickering light. Gaslight was the backdrop to a changing world, one where progress and tradition intertwined. It illuminated the great boulevards of Paris, the fog-drenched streets of London, and the grand canals of Venice, casting a golden shimmer on the rippling water. It was the light of secret rendezvous, whispered conversations, and the quiet magic of a world not yet overtaken by modern speed and brilliance. The fading of an era. With the arrival of electricity, the age of gaslight slowly faded. The soft glow was replaced by brighter, steadier illumination, and the lamplighters who once walked the streets vanished with time. Cities became more vibrant, more awake, and though progress brought new wonders, something of the old world charm was lost. Yet in certain places, the past lingers. A few gas lamps still burn in the heart of old cities, their golden light reminding us of a time when the night held a different kind of beauty. In their glow, one can still glimpse the echoes of a quieter, more mysterious world, a world of whispered footsteps, softened shadows, and the gentle dance of flame against the dark. The forgotten wonders of the Byzantine Empire. Beyond the grand history of Rome and the medieval splendor of Europe, there was an empire of shimmering mosaics, towering domes, and hidden wonders. The Byzantine Empire, a bridge between East and West, carried the legacy of Rome into a world of golden light, sacred art, and silent, labyrinthine streets. Though much of its splendor has faded into time, echoes of its greatness still whisper in forgotten corners, in the worn stones of ancient churches, and in the gentle lapping of the Bosphorus against the shores of old Constantinople. The city of marble and gold. At the heart of the Byzantine world stood Constantinople, a city of breathtaking beauty. Rising above its streets were soaring domes, richly adorned with golden mosaics that caught the flickering glow of oil lamps. The Hagia Sophia, with its vast dome floating above the city like a vision from another world, was the crown jewel of Byzantine architecture. Inside, shafts of light pierced through high windows, illuminating intricate mosaics that shimmered like captured sunlight. The great church stood as both a place of worship and a symbol of imperial power, its walls echoing with the chants of priests and the solemn footsteps of emperors. But the wonders of Byzantium stretched far beyond its most famous cathedral. Hidden within the city were underground cisterns, vast chambers supported by rows of towering columns, their waters reflecting the dim glow of lanterns. These silent reservoirs, such as the Basilica cistern, held the lifeblood of the city, supplying fresh water to palaces, homes, and baths. Even today, standing among the still waters, one can feel the quiet breath of history lingering in the cool air. A world of mosaics and icons. Byzantine art was unlike anything that came before it. Walls of churches and palaces were transformed into shimmering visions of saints, angels, and emperors, their faces crafted from tiny pieces of colored glass and gold leaf. Mosaics covered the ceilings of sacred spaces, creating a heavenly glow that seemed to lift the soul beyond the earthly world. Icons painted with delicate precision carried deep spiritual meaning. These sacred images, often depicting Christ, the Virgin Mary, or saints, were believed to hold a divine presence. In candlelit chapels and quiet monastic cells, worshippers gazed upon them in silent reverence, their prayers rising like whispers through the centuries. The enigmatic palaces and gardens. Though much of Byzantium's imperial splendor has been lost, there once stood grand palaces filled with silken draperies, marble halls, and fountains that sang softly in hidden courtyards. The great palace of Constantinople, now only a memory, once stretched across the city's heart, its rooms adorned with intricate mosaics, golden chalices, and precious silks from distant lands. Beyond the palace walls lay gardens of roses, jasmine, and citrus trees, where emperors and courtiers strolled beneath the shade of cypress trees. These gardens were places of quiet escape, where the scent of blossoms mingled with the salty breeze from the sea. Here, poets composed verses, philosophers debated the mysteries of existence, and diplomats from faraway lands marveled at the empire's elegance. The lost libraries and hidden knowledge Byzantium was not only a land of beauty, but also of wisdom. Its scholars preserved the knowledge of the ancient world, copying manuscripts and safeguarding texts that might have otherwise been lost to time. Within the halls of monasteries and the great libraries of the imperial city, works of philosophy, medicine, astronomy, and history were studied and debated. Yet much of this knowledge vanished with the empire's fall. Manuscripts were scattered, lost, or destroyed, their words fading into forgotten echoes. And yet the ideas they carried lived on, influencing the Renaissance and shaping the knowledge of future generations. The whispering stones of Byzantium. Today, the remnants of Byzantium linger in quiet places, a lone column standing in an empty square, a fragment of a mosaic hidden beneath layers of dust, the faint outline of an ancient church beneath a modern city. Though the empire itself has faded into history, its wonders have not vanished completely. They still whisper through time, waiting for those who pause to listen. And in the golden light of dusk, as the last rays of the sun touch the stones of old Constantinople, one can almost imagine the echoes of the past, the rustling of silk robes, the distant toll of cathedral bells, and the flickering glow of candlelight upon forgotten wonders. The magic of old European libraries and their timeless books. There is a quiet, almost otherworldly magic in the air when you step into one of Europe's ancient libraries. The moment the heavy doors creak open, you are transported to a realm where time seems to stand still. These libraries, some of which have stood for centuries, house books that tell the stories of humanity's long and storied past. They are not just buildings, but sanctuaries of knowledge and culture, filled with the whispered echoes of scholars, scribes, and thinkers whose work has shaped the world we live in today. The charm of ancient architecture. The architecture of these libraries alone speaks of a time when craftsmanship and reverence for knowledge went hand in hand. Each building, whether grand or humble, exudes a sense of history, inviting visitors to step inside and lose themselves in the world of books. The stone walls are thick, carrying the weight of centuries, and the arches above you seem to reach for the heavens themselves, symbolizing the pursuit of higher understanding. The quiet of the spaces, punctuated only by the soft rustling of pages and the occasional echo of footsteps, gives an almost sacred quality to the experience. In places like the Biblioteca Marciana in Venice or the Bodleian Library in Oxford, you are surrounded by magnificent wooden shelves, dark oak that has weathered the passage of time. These shelves are lined with rows upon rows of leather-bound volumes, their spines embossed with gold leaf, and their edges worn with years of careful use. The air inside these libraries is thick with the smell of old paper and polished wood, a scent that invites deep breaths and quiet reflection. In these hallowed spaces, it's easy to imagine the great minds that once roamed these halls, their thoughts and ideas preserved within the pages of the books around you. The quiet magic of the books. The true magic, of course, lies not just in the physical space, but in the treasures contained within those books. Every volume, whether small or grand, holds a world of knowledge and stories, a window into the minds of those who wrote them. Many of these books are ancient, some hundreds of years old, and they carry within them the weight of the history of entire civilizations. Their pages, though yellowed and fragile, are filled with ideas that still have the power to inspire, to provoke, and to move the reader in ways that can never be fully explained. Some of these books are handwritten manuscripts, their ink slightly faded but still legible, and each one tells the story of painstaking labor. The hours spent copying text by candlelight, the careful artistry of illuminated letters, and the delicate calligraphy that once danced across a parchment are all captured in these pages. In a world of digital screens and instant access to information, there is something truly awe-inspiring about these handwritten works, each one a testament to the dedication of those who believe that knowledge should be preserved for future generations. There is also a certain mystery to these old books. The knowledge contained within may be obscure or forgotten by modern society, yet the words themselves still hold a certain power. When you open one of these volumes, you are often transported back in time. The text on the page, whether it's a medieval bestiary or a treatise on philosophy, speaks with the voice of the past. It is a conversation between the old world and the present one, a link between generations, all of them connected through the written word. The quiet world of the scholar. Inside these libraries, scholars, students, and curious minds gather to unlock the secrets held within the pages. The quiet hum of their activity, the soft turning of pages, the occasional murmur of a discussion, All of this adds to the magic of the space. These libraries are not just places of preservation, but places of learning, where the wisdom of the past is studied, analyzed, and reinterpreted. The knowledge contained in these old books is not static. It is alive, constantly evolving as new generations bring their own perspectives and insights. In places like the Vatican Library in Rome, where one can find manuscripts dating back to the earliest days of Christianity, or the Royal Library of Denmark, home to rare and valuable texts, the connection between past and present is palpable. These libraries are not simply static archives of old books. They are vibrant, living spaces where history and knowledge continue to unfold. Scholars walk through the aisles, drawn by the lure of a dusty volume that may hold the key to a long-forgotten mystery or a previously overlooked fact. For them, these libraries are both home and temple, the sacred space where minds can connect to the eternal stream of human knowledge. The influence of books on culture. The role of these ancient libraries extends beyond just storing information. They are the repositories of culture, carrying the myths, stories, philosophies, and ideas that shape civilizations. Many of the great works of Western civilization, including the writings of Aristotle, Homer, and Virgil, are housed in these libraries. And it is through the preservation of these texts that we have come to understand the foundational ideas that underlie much of modern thought. But these libraries are not just the guardians of Western history. Within their walls, you can also find the stories of other cultures, ancient Arabic manuscripts, sacred Hindu texts, and the stories of the ancient Egyptians. These libraries are a meeting place for ideas, a place where cultures, beliefs, and philosophies have collided and interacted for centuries. It is this rich cultural exchange that has led to the creation of a global heritage, one that continues to influence us today. The romance of exploration and discovery. There is also something inherently romantic about the idea of exploring these old libraries. For centuries, these spaces were closed off to the general public, available only to those with the privilege or the ability to access them. To walk through these halls, to pull an ancient book from the shelf and run your fingers over its pages, is to become a part of a tradition that spans centuries. It is as if you are stepping into the shoes of the explorers, scholars, and great thinkers of the past who once wandered these same aisles in search of answers. The experience of losing yourself in an old European library is one of peaceful wonder. The soft, rhythmic rustling of pages, the faint scent of parchment, the quiet solitude. These are all things that calm the mind and soothe the soul. In these spaces, the modern world feels distant and forgotten. It is as though, for a few moments, you can step outside of time and become lost in the magic of the books that surround you. The timeless nature of knowledge. Ultimately, the magic of old European libraries lies in their timeless nature. These are spaces where the past and present come together, where history is preserved, and where knowledge continues to thrive. The books in these libraries may be old, but they are not dead. They continue to speak to us, to guide us, and to inspire us. Every time a reader pulls a book from the shelf, the connection between the past and the present is made anew, and the wisdom of the ages is passed on. As the world moves forward, the old libraries of Europe stand as enduring symbols of the importance of preserving knowledge, culture, and history. And as long as there are curious minds to explore their shelves, The magic of these libraries will continue to endure, quietly transforming the minds and hearts of those who enter. The music of history, lullabies, ballads, and classical pieces. Throughout history, music has been a constant companion to humanity. From the soothing lullabies sung to newborns to the stirring ballads sung in taverns or by wandering minstrels, and the grandeur of classical symphonies performed in ornate concert halls, music has been a thread weaving through the fabric of human experience. It is both a reflection of the times and a source of solace, joy, and expression. Music connects us to our past, to our emotions, and to each other. As we listen to the melodies that have echoed through the ages, we are reminded of how deeply music has shaped our shared history and culture. The comfort of lullabies. The first songs we hear, the first music we ever hear is often a lullaby. A mother's soft voice singing gentle, soothing melodies to a baby creates a bond that transcends words. Lullabies are universal, heard in every culture across the world. Though the lyrics may differ, the essence remains the same. A simple, calming melody designed to ease the child into sleep, to offer comfort, and to provide a sense of security in an uncertain world. Lullabies often carry an air of simplicity and tenderness, reminding us of the comfort and safety we once found in the arms of our caregivers. Some of the most iconic lullabies in history, such as Hush, Little Baby or Brahms' Lullaby, have become timeless, passed down through generations. These songs, often written with simple melodies and harmonies, seem to resonate deep within us, evoking a sense of peace. As they softly weave through the air, these lullabies cradle us, whether as children or as adults looking for a brief respite from the world. Lullabies have an ancient history, stretching back to the earliest recorded times. In many ancient cultures, lullabies were sung not just to lull infants to sleep, but to provide protection. In ancient Greece, for example, lullabies were sung to ward off evil spirits, invoking a sense of calm and safety. These early lullabies were deeply embedded in the spiritual life of a community, a practice that continues today. Ballads, the storytellers of the past. As we grow older, the lullabies fade into the background, and another form of music emerges, the ballad. Ballads are a cornerstone of musical history, particularly in Europe, where they were passed down orally for centuries. These songs are narratives, often dramatic tales of love, betrayal, adventure, and tragedy. Ballads serve as a historical record, preserving stories that might otherwise have been forgotten. In a time before the written word was accessible to all, ballads were the means by which stories were shared, knowledge was passed down, and culture was maintained. In the rolling hills of England, Scotland, and Ireland, ballads were sung by wandering bards and troubadours, their melodies carrying the tales of heroism, loss, and love across the land. The ballads of the British Isles are perhaps the most famous, including iconic songs like The Unquiet Grave and Barbara Allen, which have crossed borders and are still sung today. These songs were sung in taverns, at festivals, and in the homes of families as a way to remember ancestors and reflect on the events that shaped their lives. Ballads have always had a special place in folk traditions, but their influence stretches beyond Europe. In the United States, ballads played an important role in the shaping of the country's musical landscape. The haunting melodies of the Appalachian region, steeped in the history of early settlers, reflect the tales of both tragedy and triumph that define the American experience. Songs like The Wreck of the Old 97 or The Ballad of John Henry continue to evoke a sense of nostalgia for a bygone era and remain iconic symbols of folk culture. The power of a ballad lies not just in its ability to tell a story, but in its ability to evoke emotion. The slow, lilting melodies and simple, direct lyrics can transport the listener to a different time and place. Whether a ballad speaks of a tragic death, a lost love, or an epic battle, it stirs emotions that are universal and timeless. These songs are not just pieces of history, they are mirrors to the human experience. The classical pieces, grand narratives in sound. As time moved forward and societies grew more sophisticated, so too did the music. The rise of classical music in Europe brought with it a new era of sound and structure. Composers like Beethoven, Mozart, and Bach transformed music into an art form that was as complex as it was beautiful. The grand concertos, symphonies, and operas that emerged during the classical and romantic periods were the musical expressions of the intellectual and cultural developments of the time. These works continue to influence not just music but art and culture to this very day. The classical pieces of this era are often described as grand narratives in sound. The intricacy of a symphony or an opera is akin to a story being told in several movements, each with its own emotional arc. Beethoven's Symphony No. 9, for example, takes listeners on a journey from the dark and intense opening movements to the triumphant and joyous final Ode to Joy. The piece, both epic and intimate, brings the listener through an emotional landscape that mirrors the human condition, from struggle to triumph, despair to hope. Mozart's operas, such as The Magic Flute or Don Giovanni, are rich with humor, drama, and pathos. His compositions were not just musical innovations, but reflections of the cultural currents of his time. Whether capturing the frivolity of love or the serious nature of human flaws, Mozart's works still resonate deeply today for their sheer emotional depth and technical brilliance. Bach, with his intricate fugues and sacred cantatas, gave music a sense of order and harmony that could bring even the most chaotic of minds to a place of peace. His compositions, though centuries old, retain their power to calm and inspire. The precision of Bach's work is often described as both mathematical and spiritual, a fitting representation of the era's blend of intellect and emotion. The enduring power of music, from the soft strains of a lullaby to the emotional depth of a ballad and the complexity of a classical symphony. Music has always been there, echoing through history, shaping the way we think, feel, and connect with one another. Each piece of music, whether it is a simple folk tune or a grand orchestral work, carries with it the fingerprints of its time, the essence of its culture, and the emotions of its creators. Even today, as we listen to these timeless works, we are connected not only to the past, but to the people who lived and breathed them. Music allows us to hear the voices of history and feel the emotions that transcended time. It reminds us that despite the changes that come with the passing of centuries, the human experience remains remarkably constant. Music is a language that speaks to the soul. It is the soundtrack of life, threading its way through the quiet moments of childhood, the stories passed down through generations, and the grandeur of history's most profound moments. Whether we are lulled to sleep by a soft lullaby, moved by the sorrow of a ballad, or swept away by the majesty of a symphony, music is always there, offering comfort, joy, and reflection. It is a reminder that, through sound, we are all connected, past, present, and future, in the beautiful and enduring language of music. The first travelers' ancient pilgrimages across Europe. In the quiet corners of history where time seems to stand still, the paths of the first travelers across Europe are etched with stories of faith, devotion, and a yearning for discovery. These early pilgrims, driven by spiritual quests or the simple pursuit of knowledge, embarked on journeys that spanned vast and untamed landscapes, through dense forests, across windswept plains, and over rugged mountain passes. Their travels were not merely physical undertakings. They were spiritual odysseys, imbued with purpose and hope. Long before the era of railroads or automobiles, when roads were little more than narrow dirt paths and the destinations themselves often uncertain, pilgrims set out from humble villages, small towns, and even bustling cities drawn by sacred sites, mystical places, or the call of distant shrines. The act of pilgrimage was deeply woven into the fabric of medieval life, a journey that transcended the mundane and entered the realm of the divine. One of the most famous pilgrimage routes was the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James. James, which began in the rolling hills of France and wound its way through the Pyrenees, across northern Spain, and ended at the Grand Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. For centuries, this path has been a symbol of faith and devotion, attracting travelers from all corners of Europe. To journey on this path was to seek not only religious solace, but also personal transformation. The pilgrim was not merely moving through the physical world, but engaging in a spiritual pilgrimage, where every step was a prayer, every hill a challenge to overcome, and every village a pause for reflection. As pilgrims walked, their feet heavy with the dust of the road, and their minds filled with visions of the divine, they found solace in the gentle rhythm of their movement. The quiet beauty of the European countryside, with its ever-changing landscape, served as both a sanctuary and a reminder of the vastness of the world. Rolling hills of lush green meadows stretched endlessly in every direction, interrupted only by the towering presence of distant mountains, their peaks kissed by the morning sun. It was a land of extremes, where thick forests darkened the day with their mysterious shadows, while open fields offered endless horizons and the promise of new encounters. The pilgrimages were not only journeys of religious significance, but also pathways of cultural exchange. Along the way, pilgrims encountered a wide variety of communities, each with its own customs, traditions, and ways of life. They passed through villages where the rhythms of daily life remained largely unchanged for centuries, where the air was thick with the scent of freshly baked bread, and where humble market stalls offered the fruits of local artisans. The pilgrims would often stop to rest in these villages, where stories were shared over simple meals and songs were sung that spoke of faith, longing, and the eternal mysteries of life. The roads themselves, although rough and often treacherous, held a certain majesty. Winding through ancient forests, they traced the contours of the land, climbing steep hills, descending into valleys and fording rivers, with the careful grace of a traveler who knew the terrain. Though the roads were often unmarked and traveled by few, the pilgrims followed them with unwavering resolve. guided not by maps or signs, but by the deep conviction of their journey's purpose. At times they would walk alone, their solitude offering a moment of quiet reflection. At other times, they would walk in groups, sharing stories, companionship, and the occasional song. Along these ancient paths, sacred shrines and holy sites dotted the landscape. These were places where the divine was believed to touch the earthly world. In the early morning light, a lone chapel on a hilltop might shimmer in the distance, a symbol of refuge and peace. Pilgrims would pause in their journey to kneel before altars, lighting candles or offering prayers for protection and guidance. They were bound not only by their shared faith, but by a collective sense of purpose that transcended the individual. Each step taken on these holy roads was an offering of devotion, a testament to the unwavering belief in something greater than the self. For the pilgrims, the journey was long and often arduous. The road was not always kind, and the weather could be unforgiving. Storms would sometimes rage, turning dirt paths into rivers of mud, or snow would fall, blanketing the landscape in a silent, frozen world. Yet even in the face of adversity, there was a quiet determination that kept the pilgrims moving forward. Their faith, whether in a divine power or simply in the journey itself, sustained them. They understood that the road ahead was as important as the destination they sought. Over time, these early travelers left their mark not just on the land, but on the culture of Europe. Their travels contributed to the development of towns and cities, as pilgrims needed places to rest and refuel on their journeys. Small inns, roadside chapels, and resting places sprang up to meet their needs, turning these once remote locales into thriving centers of activity. The flow of pilgrims brought new ideas, new customs, and new ways of thinking to the towns and villages they passed through, fostering cultural exchange and the spread of knowledge. But it was not only the physical aspects of the pilgrimage that shaped these early travelers. The act of pilgrimage became a part of the spiritual consciousness of Europe. It was a way for people to confront the mysteries of life, to seek answers to the questions that weighed heavily on their hearts, and to find peace in the vast expanse of the world around them. For many, the journey was an opportunity for personal transformation, an occasion to reflect on one's life, to seek forgiveness, and to grow in one's faith. As centuries passed and the roads of Europe became more connected, the act of pilgrimage continued to hold great significance. While some routes fell into disuse, others flourished. Cities like Rome, Jerusalem, and Compostela became legendary destinations for those seeking spiritual solace, while smaller local pilgrimage routes continued to play an important role in connecting people to their faith and the world around them. The first travelers across Europe, those who walked the ancient pilgrimage paths, left behind a rich legacy of devotion, community, and cultural exchange. They showed us that the journey itself can be as meaningful as the destination, that the road can lead not only to sacred places, but to greater understanding, to peace within, and to a deeper connection with the world around us. In the quiet countryside, the sound of footsteps on ancient stone roads still lingers in the air, echoing the memories of those early pilgrims. The paths they walked through forests, across rivers, and up the hillsides continued to tell the stories of those who sought answers, solace, and enlightenment. Though centuries have passed, the essence of their journeys remains timeless, reminding us that the first travelers of Europe were not merely wanderers, but seekers of something much greater than themselves. The symbolism and stories behind Europe's oldest bridges, in their quiet elegance, stand as symbols of connection, strength, and endurance, arching gracefully over rivers, valleys, and gorges that separate worlds. Europe, a continent rich in history, culture, and myth, is home to some of the oldest and most iconic bridges in the world. These structures have transcended their functional purpose, becoming iconic landmarks, carriers of stories, and repositories of secrets. The symbolism of these bridges is profound, each one a silent witness to the ebb and flow of history, to the passage of time, and to the lives of those who have crossed them. From the rugged cliffs of Scotland to the gentle banks of the Danube River, Europe's oldest bridges have withstood the tests of time and nature. Many of these bridges were constructed by civilizations whose very names have faded into the mist of history, yet their enduring works remain steadfast, silently bearing the weight of centuries. These bridges are not just physical structures, but are embedded in the collective memory of those who lived in their shadows, reflecting the values, dreams, and struggles of the past. One of the most symbolic and celebrated ancient bridges is the Ponte in southern France. This Roman aqueduct bridge, constructed in the first century, is a marvel of ancient engineering and still stands as a testament to the Roman Empire's mastery of construction. Its gracefully soaring arches were designed to carry water over the Garden River, serving a practical purpose, but over the centuries it has come to symbolize the unity between nature and human ingenuity. The bridge itself is an architectural masterpiece, a reminder of an era when engineering was as much an art as a science. The Romans believed that their empire was the embodiment of civilization itself, and their bridges, like the Pont du Gard, represented the triumph of reason and the unyielding power of their culture over the natural world. For centuries, the people who crossed it were unaware of the legacy they were walking in. Today, visitors stand in awe, marveling at the precision and foresight that allowed such a delicate yet strong structure to endure. In Florence, the Ponte Vecchio, or Old Bridge, is another iconic symbol of European history. Built in the 14th century, this bridge has a rich story entwined with the rise of commerce and the artistic legacy of the Renaissance. Originally built as a crossing for traders, the Ponte Vecchio became home to a row of shops that lined both sides of the bridge, creating a unique marketplace suspended over the Arno River. During the Renaissance, it became the hub of Florence's vibrant merchant class, linking the two halves of the city while also reflecting the wealth and opulence that defined this period of great cultural flourishing. The bridge itself became a symbol of connection, not just between the two banks of the Arno, but between the realms of art and commerce, of wealth and creativity. Today, the bridge is as much a tourist attraction as a place of business, where modern shoppers and visitors walk in the footsteps of merchants and artists of centuries past. But not all of Europe's ancient bridges are merely functional or symbols of wealth and civilization. Some have a more mythical and spiritual significance. The Yasukura Devil's Bridge in the village of Kromlau, Germany, is a prime example of this type of bridge. The bridge which crosses the Rakotsee is a perfect half-circle arch, creating the illusion of a complete circle when reflected in the water below. Its unusual beauty and perfection have given rise to numerous legends, with the most popular being that it was built with the help of the devil himself. According to local folklore, the bridge's builders, eager to complete the structure, made a pact with the devil who agreed to help them construct it in exchange for the soul of the first person to cross. As the story goes, the clever villagers tricked the devil by sending a dog across first, thereby saving their souls but forever binding the bridge to the mystical realm. This tale of trickery, temptation, and redemption echoes themes that have been a part of European folklore for centuries, and the bridge's striking reflection in the water serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between the earthly and the divine. Elsewhere in Europe, the Ponte di Rialto in Venice tells a different story of connection. As the oldest and most famous bridge crossing the Grand Canal, the Rialto Bridge has stood since the late 16th century, connecting the two bustling districts of San Marco and San Polo. Venice, once a powerful trading hub, saw the Rialto Bridge as the symbol of its wealth and importance. The bridge was not just a crossing, but a testament to Venice's status as a city built upon trade and commerce, a gateway that bridged the gap between the East and West. The Rialto has borne witness to centuries of Venetian life, to the rise and fall of empires, and to the fleeting beauty of the city itself. Today it remains a busy market and a beloved landmark, and its stone arches continue to evoke the spirit of Venice's golden age, when it was a shining beacon of culture and sophistication. Yet despite the grandeur and significance of these bridges, many of Europe's oldest crossings have a simpler, quieter symbolism. In the Czech Republic, the Charles Bridge in Prague stands as a humble but powerful reminder of human perseverance. Built in the 14th century under the orders of Emperor Charles IV, the bridge spans the Vltava River and is lined with 30 statues of saints. The bridge was not only a vital link between the Old Town and Prague Castle, but also a spiritual gateway, with each saint offering protection and guidance to those who crossed. For centuries, it has been a place where people pause for contemplation, whether in the early morning mist or under the golden glow of the setting sun. Its cobblestone path, worn smooth by millions of footsteps, carries with it the weight of Prague's history, from royal processions to humble daily encounters, and it stands as a symbol of the enduring spirit of the city. The symbolism behind Europe's oldest bridges stretches beyond their architectural forms and the stories of their construction. They represent the interconnectedness of human lives, the physical and spiritual journeys that bind people together, and the passage of time. Each bridge, whether grand or simple, ornate or plain, tells a story of its time, a story of how people sought to connect, to cross divides, to build something lasting and meaningful in the face of natural obstacles. In today's world, where modern bridges of steel and concrete stretch across vast distances, it is easy to forget the stories that lie hidden in the ancient stones of these older crossings. Yet the symbolism they carry is as powerful as ever, offering us a glimpse into a world where bridges were not just for crossing rivers, but for linking hearts, souls, and histories together. As we walk across these ancient structures, we too are part of the ongoing story, a story that has spanned centuries and will continue as long as the bridges themselves endure. Thank you for watching till the end. Have a good sleep.